My ex-husband is infertile, yet I'm pregnant with twins. After 2 years of marriage, Yanli suddenly asked for a divorce. Shen Luofei clenched the infertility form in her hand and approached. Yanli, you are so mean. You want to blame the divorce on my inability to have children. I won't take the blame. He pushed her away in disgust. What do you want to do? She curled her red lips and smiled seductively. Of course I want you to fulfill your husband and wife obligations. The next day, Shen Luofei took advantage of him and left a word before escaping. Yanli, your skills are really bad. I'm going to find some fresh meat. Yanli angrily issued a global arrest warrant to arrest Shen Luofei. 5 years later, she returned with a smart and handsome baby. He immediately cornered the woman and said viciously, Shen Luofei, don't try to escape this time. Bad guy, you are not allowed to bully my mommy. Yanli looked down and saw a picture of a cute little baby who looked exactly like himself, and he immediately questioned. Shen Luofei, whose child is this? Of course it's mine. Which wild man did you have the baby with? Stupid daddy, of course it's mommy and you. Chapter 1, Fulfilling Marital Duties. Shen Luofei, you little bitch. You tricked us into marrying into the Ji family. You were born infertile, and now you're going to ruin Yanli's bloodline. In the gynecology examination room, Shen Luofei's mother-in-law, Jinglei, slapped her face hard. Shen Luofei covered her burning cheek and looked in disbelief at the examination report. She shook her head. It's impossible, my body is fine. The reason she hadn't gotten pregnant in 2 years of marriage was that Yanli had never touched her. The test results are clear, and you still won't admit it. I'm going to teach you a lesson for my son today. Jinglei was furious, and Yang Chushi, who was wearing a white coat, pretended to hold her back. Aunt, please calm down. I believe Luofei didn't intentionally trick us into marriage. She just really wanted to marry Yanli and be the young mistress of the Ji family. Chushi, you're just too kind. If she hadn't used tricks to force Yanli to marry her, you would have married him, and I would have been holding a fat grandson by now. Watching the two of them act in unison, Shen Luofei suddenly understood. Yang Chushi, did you tamper with my test results? Yang Chushi looked at her with a pitiful expression. Luofei, it's clear that you're the one who can't have children, why are you accusing me? Shen Luofei, Chushi has been so kind to you, and yet you're turning on her. Divorce, the Ji family doesn't want a malicious daughter-in-law. Shen Luofei saw a gleam of satisfaction in Yang Chushi's eyes. Their goal was to force her to divorce, but she wouldn't let them succeed. I'll prove to you that I can get pregnant. As for the divorce, that's between Yanli and me, and you have no right to interfere. After saying this confidently, Shen Luofei's face paled as she returned to the villa. As soon as she pushed open the door, she saw Yanli sitting on the sofa with his legs crossed, a document placed on the coffee table. The man's handsome face looked icy cold. He lifted his gaze, and their eyes met. She felt a cold shiver run from her feet to her head. Shen Luofei, let us get a divorce. Even though she had mentally prepared herself, the words still made her heart ache. After all, she had liked Yanli ever since the first time they met when she was 10. She stubbornly asked, there should be a reason for a divorce, right? You know that the infertility report is fake, don't you? Yanli interrupted her sharply. Shen Luofei, you know very well that there is no love between us. If you want to save face, just sign the papers. You'll still get a compensation. Otherwise, if you keep causing trouble, you'll get nothing. Yanli's brows furrowed in disgust, and his voice revealed his impatience. Shen Luofei froze, instinctively clenching her fists. Yes, indifference is the cruelest thing. Back then, Yang Chushi had rejected Yanli because the Ji family's business was in trouble, and just before the wedding, she left him. It was then that old Master Ji turned to her grandfather for help. Her grandfather and old Master Ji were old friends, and knowing she liked Yanli, he had arranged for her to marry him, only for Yang Chushi to accuse her of being a scheming woman. Since marrying, Shen Luofei had faithfully played her role as a wife while Yanli worked hard in business. She took care of him diligently. Now that Yang Chushi had returned from studying abroad, Yanli was eager for her to return to her rightful position as his white moonlight. Shen Luofei sneered, then suddenly rushed into Yanli's arms, tightly wrapping her arms around his strong waist. Yanli's face darkened, and he instinctively tried to push her away. Shen Luofei, what are you doing? Shen Luofei gave a seductive smile, her red lips close to his icy thin ones, and the smell of alcohol hit her he had been drinking. Yanli, the G family wants to blame our divorce on my infertility, but I won't take the fall for that. I want to see whether it's you or me who has the problem. Now you have to fulfill your marital duties. The two words, not functioning, were the last thing a man wanted to hear, and Shen Luofei was clearly poking the tiger in the eye. Hearing this, Yanli's eyes turned bloodshot, and the veins on his neck bulged. Shen Luofei, you're shameless. Do you know the price for provoking me? I'll make you wish you were dead. Alright, I'd like to see how powerful you are. I don't want to be a laughingstock and stay a virgin even after the divorce. Yanli gripped the back of her head, his jaw clenched in anger. Shen Luofei, tonight you'll learn how to write the word death. Yanli's assault was fierce, like a wild wolf that could never be satisfied, and he tormented her all night long. The next morning, Shen Luofei woke up in the bedroom. She opened her eyes, recalling everything that had happened from the living room to the bedroom last night. Her fair face immediately turned bright red. Her slender legs were trembling. After putting on her clothes, she looked at Yanli, who was lying naked on the bed with his muscular chest exposed, then took the only coin she had and placed it on the bedside table. Finally, she turned and left without looking back. 3 hours later, Yanli woke up. He looked around the empty bedroom. Shen Luofei was gone. He had drunk too much at the banquet last night, and with the alcohol affecting him, plus being enraged by the woman, he had lost control and slept with her. As soon as he put on his clothes, he saw the coin on the nightstand. What did that mean? The next second, the servant who was bringing lunch knocked on the door. Yanli snapped, "Have you seen Shen Luofei?" The butler respectfully handed over the divorce agreement and then spoke. "Young master, this is the divorce agreement signed by young madam. She also has a few words for you." "What words?" The butler hesitated for a few seconds before quietly saying. "Young madam said that you're a 3-second man, very poor. Your performance is only worth 1 coin. She also said that after trying you, she is definitely going to leave this prison and find a younger, better man." The butler's voice grew softer as Yanli's face darkened to an unbearable level. He angrily smashed the insulting coin to the floor. "Shen Luofei." Yanli gritted his teeth and yelled. "Release a global wanted notice. Whoever brings this woman to me will get a reward of $100 million. Remember, I want her alive." "Butler, young master is serious. Young madam is in trouble now." Yanli swore, "Shen Luofei, even if you escape to the ends of the earth, I will bring you back." Chapter 2, Cool and Handsome Little Boy. 5 years later, on Luoyang Island in Huacheng. In the 5 years since, Shen Luofei has risen to fame as a renowned pharmaceutical researcher and a top designer for major luxury brands. Her cancer treatment drug, by Luofei, won a prestigious award from an international medical organization. This time, the award ceremony and the pharmaceutical partnership meeting are held in Huacheng, China. Returning to Huacheng after 5 years, Shen Luofei feels a mix of emotions. She can't help but pull a photo from her pocket, a photo of a cool, handsome, little boy who looks remarkably like a younger version of Yanli. 5 years ago, shortly after leaving the Ji family, Shen Luofei discovered that she was pregnant. At the time, Yanli had issued a global manhunt for her. Unable to stay in Huacheng, she initially thought about seeking help from her grandfather and mother. However, both her grandfather and mother fell ill and passed away, and her father and his mistress took over her grandfather's company, forcefully expelling her. Fortunately, her best friend, Xu Enyu, sent her to a private island that her brother Xu Muse had purchased in Xiangguo, where she could escape Yanli's pursuit. At the time, she was pregnant with twins, but unfortunately, her son passed away shortly after birth. Only her son, Rui Ran, survived. For the past 5 years, Shen Luofei and her son, Shen Rui Ran, have lived peacefully on the island in Xiangguo. Had it not been for the award ceremony and the promotion of her drug, she wouldn't have risked returning to Huacheng. To avoid being recognized by Yanli, she has been living under the alias Amelia. After checking into their hotel arranged by the event organizers, Shen Luofei decided to take a short walk. She began to feel thirsty and was about to return to their hotel when, unexpectedly, a small figure suddenly collided with her. Luckily, she managed to stay steady and not fall. She looked down and saw a cute little boy dressed in a white shirt, black suspenders, and branded sneakers. Just as she was about to ask if he was okay, her heart skipped a beat when she saw his face. The boy's soft, round face and big black and white eyes were unmistakably like Rui Ran's. Rui Ran wasn't he supposed to be here in Huacheng, he was supposed to be on the island in Xianghua. How did he end up here? Shen Luofei's anger flared up as she immediately grabbed the boy's soft hand. Shen Rui Ran. You're so brave to sneak away and come to Huacheng without telling me. Do you know how dangerous the outside world is? What would have happened if you ran into bad people? Rui Ran was lively, playful, and a bit mischievous. However, he had never left the island since he was born. If he hadn't run into her today, she would have been frantic with worry. Rui Ran usually liked to wear casual sportswear, but today he was dressed so formally, which was unlike him. Ji Yushi, seeing the serious and beautiful lady scolding him, was puzzled. She called him Rui Ran, but that wasn't his name. Perhaps she had mistaken him for someone else. Realizing this, though annoyed at being scolded without reason, Ji Yushi remained polite and explained, "Pretty auntie, I'm not the Rui Ran you're talking about. Please move aside, I need to go to school." Today, Ji Yushi had overheard his grandma saying that his father was marrying that bad woman, Yang Chushi, and he had argued with his father and grandma before running away from home. He had planned to go to school, but when he realized his father might come looking for him, he decided to go in the opposite direction. But he ended up bumping into this strange lady. Shen Luofei, hearing her son lie and pretend not to know her, was initially angry. But when she heard him seriously say he was going to school, she couldn't help but laugh. Rui Ran, even if you're lying, you need to have some reasoning. You've always hated school. Now stop messing around. I won't scold you, but come with mommy back to the room. The more time they spent outside, the more danger they were in. She couldn't let Yanli have a chance to snatch Rui Ran away, he was her everything. As Shen Luofei tried to lead Ji Yushi back, he pulled his hand away from hers again. "Auntie, I'm not causing trouble. I really am not Rui Ran. My name is..." Just as he was about to tell her his name was Ji Yushi, Shen Luofei interrupted with a frown. "Rui Ran, mommy's patience is limited. Stop joking around." Seeing her getting upset, Ji Yushi hesitated for a moment before asking, "Auntie, do you have evidence that I'm Rui Ran?" Shen Luofei sighed helplessly and took out a photo from her pocket. She handed it to Ji Yushi. Ji Yushi took the photo and saw the little boy in the picture, who looked just like him, happily leaning into Shen Luofei's embrace. He was stunned. His little mind was in chaos, and he needed some time to calm down. He couldn't believe there could be someone exactly like him, unless they were twins. He had once asked his father where his mother was, and every time his father had angrily told him that his mother had died. Perhaps his mother hadn't died after all. Maybe this beautiful lady in front of him was his real mother. The thought of not being alone in the world, of having a brother and a mother, made Ji Yushi excited. However, this was just a guess, and he couldn't tell her the truth yet. "Rui Ran, it's time to go back with mommy." Okay, I was wrong," Ji Yushi quickly apologized obediently. Shen Luofei. Ji Yushi, who had always been mischievous and domineering, was now apologizing. This wasn't like him at all. Could it be that she had been too harsh earlier and scared him? After thinking for a moment, Shen Luofei softened and smiled gently. "Well, Rui Ran, mommy was just worried about you, that's why I was so strict. Next time, don't run away from abroad by yourself. By the way, how did you get on the plane? Children aren't allowed to travel alone without an adult guardian." Ji Yushi's big eyes twinkled as he awkwardly explained, "Of course I. Did Shu Enyu secretly bring you here? Where is she? Shu Enyu? She must be mommy's friend," thought Ji Yushi. He silently apologized to Aunt Shu Enyu and reluctantly nodded his head. "Okay, I'll call Shu Enyu and ask her why she is so childish at her age. How can she be a godmother?" Shen Luofei was about to call Shu Enyu, but then she stopped. If she called her, the lie would be exposed. Ji Yushi wasn't good at lying, so he bravely tried to convince Shen Luofei. "Mommy, don't blame Aunt Enyu. I begged her to bring me here. Mommy, I'm hungry. Can we go eat something?" Ji Yushi's cute, pitiful look instantly melted Shen Luofei's anger. She crouched down, kissed Ji Yushi on the cheek, and gently took his little hand. "Okay, you can have whatever you want to eat today. Mommy will treat you." The kiss from mommy was soft, and her scent was sweet. This was Ji Yushi's first time being kissed by mommy, and his fair little face turned red from the embarrassment. At the entrance of the Luoyang Island Hotel, a group of well-trained bodyguards stood in 2 rows. A long Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up, and a tall, handsome man in a perfectly tailored black suit stepped out. He exuded an intense aura of "stay away," and his presence caused the temperature around him to drop, creating a tense atmosphere. Chapter 3: Enemies on the Same Path. Have you found the young master? Ji Yanli's gaze was as cold as ice, almost gritting his teeth. The bodyguard lowered his head, trembling with fear. Mr. Ji, someone saw the young master running toward the Luoyang Island Hotel, but after we checked the surveillance, we couldn't find any trace of him. The temperature around them dropped to freezing point, and the bodyguards remained silent as if frozen. Ji Yanli's handsome face darkened, his voice harsh. Lock down the entire hotel, search room by room until you find the young master. Yes, Mr. Ji. In the restaurant, Shen Luofei cheerfully placed a piece of meat in the bowl of little Yushi. Ruibao, you're getting too thin and lacking nutrition. Eat more meat to replenish yourself. Here's your favorite braised pork with preserved vegetables, eat it while it's hot. Yushi looked down at the greasy piece of meat in his bowl, a hint of resistance in his eyes. He hated oily meat, and his mom must have placed it there because of his taste preferences. Seeing that the little one wasn't touching his chopsticks, seemingly conflicted, Shen Luofei asked in confusion. Ruibao, why aren't you eating? Have you become picky since coming back to China? Little kids shouldn't be picky eaters. Under his mother's gentle education, Yushi reluctantly picked up the piece of meat and was about to struggle to put it into his mouth when suddenly a commotion was heard outside. Shen Luofei instinctively rushed over to hug Yushi tightly. Yushi immediately calmed down, feeling safe, even greedily soaking in the warmth of his mother's embrace. What happened? Someone in the crowd protested angrily. The next moment, a large group of bodyguards in black rushed into the restaurant, their presence overwhelming. At this time, their hotel manager wiped the sweat off his forehead and informed everyone that they must return to their rooms. No one was allowed to leave without permission, and everyone had to undergo a search. A strong sense of unease surged inside Shen Luofei as she comforted the trembling Yushi in her arms. Ruibao, don't be afraid, mommy's here. Shen Luofei raised her eyes and saw that the doors at the front and back were completely blocked, with not even a fly able to get through. In that moment, she seemed to spot a familiar figure. Just as she wanted to take a closer look at the face, the figure was swept into the elevator by the crowd. At the instant the elevator doors closed, the man's face flashed before her eyes. Ji Yanli. Could she be this unlucky? It was really an enemy's path crossing. When Ji Yanli's deep and unfathomable gaze turned toward her, the elevator doors slammed shut. Shen Luofei felt as if all the air had been sucked out of her, her back soaked in sweat. Ji Yanli suddenly appearing here, had he found Ruibao and was planning to snatch him away from her? No, Ruibao was her treasure. She would never, not even if it cost her life, let Ji Yanli, that devil, take him. Shen Luofei quickly rushed back to the room with Yushi, who was still in shock, possibly even stunned by the situation. She searched the room and finally hid Yushi in the wardrobe. Ruibao, no matter what happens outside, stay inside and don't come out, understand? Yushi pursed his little lips and nodded obediently. Mommy, you be careful too. Shen Luofei patted his little head and gave a determined smile. Don't worry, mommy will protect herself. Just as she was about to close the wardrobe door, a knock came at the main door. Shen Luofei took a deep breath and walked over to open it. Of course it's you. Outside the door, Ji Yanli's eyes narrowed dangerously, like a predator eyeing its prey. A mocking curve formed at the corner of his mouth. Just moments ago, at the elevator, he had thought he was seeing things. Shen Luofei, that woman, had disappeared from his world for 5 years. If it wasn't for Yushi's arrival that made him realize she was still alive, he would have thought she was dead. Seeing her face again, one he had etched in his mind, he couldn't help but recall the humiliation and the scheme that had led to his downfall 5 years ago. Despite preparing himself mentally, when Ji Yanli fixed her with that look that seemed to want to tear her apart, she felt a strong impulse to flee. But the hallway was packed with bodyguards, and a towering figure blocked her path. Ji Yanli's black eyes stirred with stormy fury, his brows furrowed deeply, and his intense gaze could have carved a hole through her fair face. Shen Luofei, you're still alive. With that, he violently seized her wrist. His piercing gaze locked onto her eyes, and his chest churned with anger, mixed with emotions he couldn't quite control. In his mind, Shen Luofei had been living in hiding, so he expected her to look haggard. But to his surprise, the woman was more vibrant than 5 years ago, her figure even more alluring, exuding a mature femininity. He suddenly remembered her last words, about going after a young fresh meat. Could it be that she had become so enchanting because some other man had been taking care of her? The thought of her having made a fool of him so many times filled him with a rage so intense he wanted to strangle her. Shen Luofei saw the murderous intent in Ji Yanli's eyes, forcing herself to stay calm. This man was still cold and ruthless toward her, even wishing her dead. Why should she hold on to any hope for him? Her feelings for him had been severed 5 years ago. Shen Luofei spoke coldly, "Sir, you're mistaken. I'm not Shen Luofei. I'm Amelia." Hearing this, Ji Yanli sneered. "Shen Luofei, stop pretending. Even if you were turned to ashes, I'd still recognize you." Shen Luofei tried her best to suppress her anger, not allowing his provocation to rile her up. "Sir, if you're here to cause trouble, I don't welcome you. Please leave immediately." Ji Yanli hadn't forgotten his purpose. He and Shen Luofei would settle their scores later. Right now, finding Yushi was his priority. Ji Yanli's cold gaze swept past Shen Luofei and scanned the room, finally stopping at the wardrobe. "What are you going to do?" Shen Luofei asked in a panic. Ignoring her, Ji Yanli swiftly approached the wardrobe. Yushi, hiding inside, curled his small body, not daring to breathe. Shen Luofei immediately rushed to block the wardrobe with her body. Ji Yanli paused for a moment, his voice low and displeased as he growled, "Move. This is my private space. You're not the police, you have no right to search my room." Seeing her blocking him, Ji Yanli stepped forward, his tall figure completely overshadowing her small frame. "You're acting so guilty, are you hiding something shameful inside? Like your lover? Stop talking nonsense. All I have in there are personal clothes. Do you have a perverted hobby of spying on women's private clothes?" The bodyguards outside murmured, "Dare to call Mr. G a pervert? This woman is the first, she's doomed." Upon hearing this, Ji Yanli's face darkened. Furious, he roughly pushed Shen Luofei away from the wardrobe and reached for the door. Just as he was about to open it, a voice suddenly came from outside. "Mr. G, we found the young master." Chapter 4, Forced. Young master? Could it be that Ji Yanli has married Yang Chushi and had a child? Although she had given up on Ji Yanli a long time ago, Shen Luofei felt a little unhappy when she learned that he married another woman and had children so quickly. What a scumbag! Ji Yanli quickly withdrew his hand, turned around, a hint of surprise appeared in his deep eyes, and he asked quickly, "Where is the young master? Take me there." However, Ji Yanli had only taken a few steps when he suddenly stopped in front of Shen Luofei, who was about to breathe a sigh of relief. A storm was brewing in his bottomless black eyes, and a strong sense of oppression instantly came over him. "Shen Luofei, let's slowly settle our accounts," he instructed. "Guard this gate, no one is allowed to go out without my permission." Hearing this, Shen Luofei was about to explode with anger. She rushed directly towards Ji Yanli, but was ruthlessly stopped by the bodyguard. "Ji Yanli, you bastard, what right do you have to control my personal freedom? Be smart and remove your bodyguards immediately, or I will call the police to arrest you." A mocking arc appeared on Ji Yanli's charmingly handsome face, and he snorted coldly. "Shen Luofei, you didn't admit it just now, and you even gave yourself an ugly foreign name. But you were exposed when I provoked you." Hearing his shameless plan, Shen Luofei's pretty face flushed. She pointed at him and said, "You are despicable and shameless." "Oh, when it comes to being despicable and shameless, how can I compare to you? You have reminded me, Miss Shen, if I report to the police that you raped me 5 years ago, how many years do you think you will be sentenced to?" Ji Yanli's tone suddenly became cold, and his rough fingertips suddenly clamped her chin. Shen Luofei couldn't believe that Ji Yanli would say such shameless words in public. Her little face turned red as she gritted her teeth and sneered. "Boss Ji, it seems like you can't forget the night we had together. Do you want me to help you relive it?" The bodyguard outside the door blushed. What kind of vicious words are these? Should they avoid them? Shen Luofei's red lips suddenly moved close to him, and the unique orchid scent of a woman filled his nose. Ji Yanli's mind emerged with their only passionate night. However, the next second, Ji Yanli pushed her away with a gloomy face. "I'm not interested in a frivolous woman like you." After saying that, without waiting for Shen Luofei to react, he slammed the door and walked out in a hurry. Along the way, Ji Yanli's brows were furrowed, his eyes were filled with murderous intent, and his hands kept pulling at his tie. Damn it, he was almost seduced by that woman just now. This woman's methods of seducing men are even more powerful than those 5 years ago. He would never allow the mistake made 5 years ago to happen again. In the VIP room, little boy Shen Luofei kept trying to escape but was stopped by the black-clad bodyguards outside. He shouted loudly, "Why are you arresting me? I still want to find my mommy, please let me go." Not long after mommy left Xiangdao, the clever little Ruibao secretly hid in the storage compartment of Uncle Xu Muzhi's plane. After the plane left Xiangdao and stopped at Huacheng Airport, he successfully arrived at Luoyang Island without anyone noticing, without letting Uncle Xu Muzhi know. He knew that the hotel where mommy worked and stayed was right here, but he had just walked into the gate of Luoyang Island when he was forcibly grabbed by the group of men in black, and no matter how he beat or scolded them, it was of no use. Ruibao was really depressed to death. "Young master, please don't be angry with the eldest master. The eldest master will be here soon." "I'm not your young master, and I don't know your eldest master." He angrily took his short legs and tried to rush out of the encirclement, but he was hugged by the bodyguard again. Ruibao was not polite either, and bit the security guard's arm hard with his little teeth. "Woo, bad guy, let me go." "Ji Yushi, that's enough, don't go too far." The struggling Ruibao heard a very majestic man's voice from above his head. He couldn't help but raise his head and carefully looked at the tall and mighty man in front of him. This handsome uncle looks a little familiar. By the way, I have seen reports about him on the internet. He is the world's richest man who has been ranked first on the Forbes celebrity list for 5 consecutive years. But they had never seen why the look in his eyes when he looked at them was filled with doting and anger, and why the bodyguards just now called him young master. His little head turned quickly, and he remembered that he had seen the photo of this man in his mother's wallet. Could he be the scumbag father who abandoned his wife and children and cheated on his wife? Ruibao was originally very happy to see him, but when he thought that he was a heartless man, his mood instantly became extremely bad. He stared at the man with his big black grape eyes, his eyes full of undisguised anger. Ji Yanli suppressed his anger and looked at the person in front of him who had changed his clothes. Moreover, they were the childish cartoon clothes that Yushi disliked the most. His brows couldn't help but frown. "Ji Yushi, I won't mind you running away from home this time, but I won't allow you to do that next time. Come home with me." Ji Yanli squatted down with his long legs and was about to grab his little hand, but he pushed it away with a dark face. Ruibao is very smart. He has obtained important information from his scumbag father's words, which is that there is a child named Ji Yushi who looks exactly like him and has run away from home. That is to say, he has a twin brother in this world, and the reason why his brother ran away from home must be that he was abused by his stepmother. Before coming to China, he secretly investigated and found out that Yang Chushi was the mistress between daddy and mommy. Thinking of this, Ruoran suppressed his excitement and his face became serious. "If you don't drive that bad woman away, I would rather beg for food than go back to that cold home." Ji Yanli's hands stiffened, his face darkened, and he asked unhappily, "What bad woman? In our Ji family, there are no other women except your grandmother. Does the scumbag dad have selective amnesia or is he lying with his eyes open?" Ruibao put his hands on his hips, very tough and confident, and responded to Ji Yanli. "Everyone knows that you are going to marry Yang Chushi and be my stepmother soon. Rather than being tortured to death by my stepmother, I might as well disappear early and avoid being an eyesore to you." Ji Yanli's handsome face was darker than charcoal. Although Yushi didn't like Yang Chushi, he still had good manners and would never speak to him in that tone. Did Yushi get provoked by something and become so irritable? Ji Yanli suppressed his anger again and had to explain patiently. "Yushi, daddy never plans to get married again." This was the maximum he could explain. Ruibao frowned and didn't believe it. Men's words are lies. If you really don't want to marry her, you should let her disappear from your world completely instead of dragging it out. As a man, I hate flirting the most. Chapter 5 Ruibao angrily scolds the mistress. The bodyguards on the side were stunned after hearing this. When did the young master become so good at talking back at people? They wished they could ask the young master to be their teacher. Ji Yanli had lived for almost 30 years, but this was the first time he was unable to fight back after being confronted by his son. Ji Yushi, don't push your luck, come home with me. Ji Yanli did not give the little guy any chance to escape. He picked up the gurgling little guy with his long arms and walked out with big strides. Ruibao finally vented his anger for his mommy, and then he realized the danger. He kicked Ji Yanli's chest hard with his little feet, and his white shirt was covered with the little guy's footprints. I don't want to go with you. I want to go find my mommy. Hearing this, Ji Yanli slapped him on the butt, his face frighteningly gloomy. You don't have a mommy. Your mommy died a long time ago. Shen Luofei, that irresponsible woman, secretly gave birth to Yushi, and one day left the dying Yushi at the doorstep of the Ji family, and ran away to the ends of the earth to live happily. She is not worthy of being Yushi's mother. Wow, you bad guy, my mommy is not dead. In Ruibao's mind, mommy is the most important. He will not forgive anyone who dares to speak ill of mommy. Ji Yanli didn't care about the crying Ruren and just stuffed the little guy into the car. He got in immediately and drove away in the Rolls-Royce Phantom. As for Shen Luofei, she closed and locked the door since Ji Yanli left. She quietly opened the closet door and saw Yushi huddled in the closet obediently, his face a little pale. This was the first time since he was a child that he had bravely fought back against his daddy. He was almost discovered by his daddy just now, and his little heart almost jumped out of his chest. Ruibao, what's wrong with you? Are you scared? Don't be afraid, mommy is here, and the bad guys are gone. Seeing that Ruibao was so scared that he didn't dare to make a sound, Shen Luofei felt very distressed. She stretched out her arms and took the little guy out of the closet. Yushi shook his head obediently. Shen Luofei felt that there was something wrong with Ruibao. He was not as lively as usual. You know, Ruibao would feel suffocated if he didn't talk for a day. Shen Luofei pinched Yushi's soft little face with her hands and smiled in a particularly doting manner. Ruibao, you must be thirsty. Mommy will make you a cup of tea, okay? Yushi didn't dare to move in the closet. His legs were numb. He was really thirsty. Moreover, he smelled the unique fragrance of his mother, which made him feel very safe. Thank you, mommy. Yushi said shyly. Shen Luofei hesitated for another second in disbelief. Ruibao seemed to have said thank you several times today. She concluded that Ruibao must have been frightened by that bastard Ji Yanli. No, she must take Ruibao away from here as soon as possible. Yushi looked at the white room. He heard the conversation between Daddy and Mommy today. Daddy must be very angry. But in the end, the bodyguard said that he found the young master, but he was clearly in the closet. His big eyes suddenly lit up, and he understood that the young master caught by the bodyguard must be his younger brother Ruibao. Although Daddy doesn't commit domestic violence, he is quite fierce compared to the gentle Mommy. What's more, I made a mistake. The key is that vixen will definitely exaggerate and say bad things about me in front of Daddy. Yushi couldn't help but start to worry. Will Ruibao be bullied since he has just arrived? Inside the Rolls-Royce Phantom, Ruren struggled for a while, but his arm was no match for his thigh, and finally he was taken back to Ji's house by Ji Yanli. As soon as he got out of the car, the bodyguards surrounded Ruibao tightly. Ji Yanli seemed to know that he wanted to run and did not give him any chance at all. Although it was the first time for Ruibao to visit his daddy's mansion, he was not in the mood to appreciate it. The two men, one big and one small, ignored each other and walked into the living room with the same sour faces. As soon as Ruibao walked in, he was hugged by a middle-aged lady in luxurious clothes. Yushi baby, you're finally back. You scared me to death. Then, a woman exuding a pungent scent of perfume walked out from behind Xie Jinglei. She first looked at Ji Yanli lovingly, and then when she saw Ruibao, she walked over hypocritically and wanted to touch his head. Yanli, I'm so glad to see that baby Yushi has returned safely. You don't know how worried my aunt and I were just now. Ruibao raised his little face, glared at the hypocritical vixen fiercely, and turned his head away in disgust. Don't touch me. A flash of embarrassment passed across Yang Chushi's face. Xie Jinglei let go of Ruibao and said dissatisfiedly. Yushi baby, Aunt Yarn also cares about you, how can you be so rude to her? It was this vixen who seduced Daddy and caused Mommy and Daddy to divorce. Ruibao sneered, I am only polite to good people. As for those mistresses who destroy other people's families, they are not worthy at all. Ruibao is not afraid of his stinky daddy and vixen, he is a little bully. Yushi, don't talk nonsense. Xie Jinglei scolded Ruibao. Ruibao smiled at Xie Jinglei disapprovingly. Grandma, if you don't want me to continue running away from home, just shut up. This grandma is really confused and annoying. I don't know how brother Yushi has endured it all these years, but he can't tolerate it. Xie Jinglei loves this grandson the most, and she was immediately speechless. Yang Chushi's face darkened slightly, and her nails dug into her palms fiercely. The next second, she looked pitifully at Yanli, who had been silent and extremely indifferent. Yanli, I know I'm not Yushi's biological mother, so no matter how good and sincere I am to him, he doesn't like me. But I don't blame him. After all, the child is still young. Don't blame him too much. Don't let my feelings ruin the relationship between you and your son. After Yang Chushi finished speaking, tears welled up in her watery eyes, as if she had suffered a great injustice. This woman was trying to sow discord and put the blame on others right in front of him. Ruibao's face was very sour, and he looked at his father Ji Yanli with scrutiny and dissatisfaction. He knew that Yang Chushi was acting and was a typical green tea and white lotus. It all depended on whether daddy had the ability to identify a bitch. Ji Yanli's gaze did not look at Yang Chushi, but fell on his son's little face, which was full of dissatisfaction. His thick sword-like eyebrows frowned again, and finally he glanced at Yang Chushi, who was almost in tears. Since you know Yushi doesn't like you, you shouldn't appear in front of him. Wow, daddy finally said something sensible, and baby Ruren didn't seem to hate him so much anymore. Yang Chushi was stunned at first, but she did not give up and explained softly, I came to visit Aunt Xie because I saw that she was in a bad mood, so. No need to explain. Our Ji family has no shortage of servants. From today on, you are forbidden to set foot here. Ji Yanli did not give her any chance and decisively refused and ordered her to leave. Chapter 6, Severing the father-son relationship. After Yang Chushi was driven away aggrieved, Xie Jinglei couldn't help but scold her. Yanli, how could you treat Chushi like this? She is your savior. Rui Bao frowned, wondering why the bad woman would save daddy. His big black and white eyes looked at Ji Yanli in confusion. Ji Yanli's handsome face turned slightly cold, and he said in a deep voice, if she hadn't saved me before, do you think she would still appear in front of me? It's getting late. I'll ask the driver to take you home. Xie Jinglei wanted to say a few more words, but her son drove her away again, so she had to leave with a gloomy face. In the living room, only Ji Yanli and Rui Bao were left, and the atmosphere became cold for a moment. Ji Yanli's gaze fell on Rui Bao's scrutinizing gaze again, and he said calmly, you can rest assured that Yang Chushi will never come home again. Originally, daddy's driving away the bad woman had won him a wave of favor, but when he heard that the bad woman had a life-saving relationship with daddy, this undoubtedly made the already hostile relationship between daddy and mommy even worse. Ruibao snorted sarcastically, if she doesn't come home, she can date you outside. She is your savior, you will definitely not be willing to abandon her. Oh, I have such a miserable life. If daddy has a child with his stepmother, he won't like me anymore. I might as well leave early and find mommy. At least mommy won't abandon me. After Ruibao finished speaking in a tragic voice, his little body slid off the bench. Stop. The little brat is becoming more and more rebellious. Ji Yanli stood up and walked quickly with his long legs to Ruibao. He frowned and suppressed his anger. Even if Yang Chushi is my savior, I will not marry her, let alone have children with her. Maybe it was because the daddy standing in front of him was too tall, or maybe it was because his voice was too loud. Anyway, little baby Ruren was a little frightened. Also, let me emphasize again, you don't have a mommy. You are just my son, Ji Yanli. You're talking nonsense. Daddy is a man and can't have children. I didn't come out of a stone. Ji Yushi, I'm telling you this for the last time, your mommy is dead. Ji Yanli interrupted him harshly. Damn scumbag daddy, Ruibao swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. Daddy seems to have a lot of resentment towards mommy. If he tells him that mommy is back, wouldn't that expose mommy to danger? Besides, he always used to ask mommy where daddy was, and mommy's answer was the same as daddy's. Ruibao suppressed his explosive emotions and said coldly, you'd better keep your word. If I see you continue to be entangled with the vixen, I will disown you. After saying that, without waiting for Ji Yanli to answer, he ran upstairs proudly with his short legs. Season banquet. This little thing is really lawless. He even threatened to sever the father-son relationship with him and didn't even call him daddy anymore. After Yanli calmed down, he felt something was wrong the more he thought about it. He dialed Suibai's number directly. Boss G, has the young master's condition changed? Suibai is a famous child psychologist in Huacheng, and he has been treating Yusha's condition. It has been several years since Yusha's last attack. Yanli and Suibai both believe that Yusha's condition is under control. Well, there are some changes. Is it serious? I'll be right there. Not for now, it's just that Yusha's personality seems to be different. You know, Yushi was very quiet before, but now he is very lively and talks a lot. He even has a bit of a devilish feel to him. After listening to this, Suibai was silent for a few minutes before continuing to speak. That only means that Yusha's illness is still latent in his body. As long as there is a trigger, it will flare up. I have come across cases of children with various mental disorders, but I have never seen a sudden change in personality like Yushi baby. But fortunately, Yusha's personality has just become more lively. Maybe he has been suppressing it for too long and now wants to express it, or maybe he has encountered someone or something that stimulated him. Suibai's words did remind Yanli that Yusha's changes happened to coincide with the time when Shen Luofei returned, but he was sure that the two had not met. There was a chill in his eyes. Perhaps it was because of the bond between mother and son. Yushi could feel Shen Luofei's presence, so he was affected. It seemed that he had to drive Shen Luofei away. Do you have any good ideas to cure Yushi? Yusha's last attack was related to missing mommy. Is this also related to this? Yanli took a deep breath and could only tell everything. That's easy. You can try to let Yushi contact her. She is the key to Yusha's complete recovery. Remember not to drive her away, otherwise Yusha's temperament may change again, and it may worsen and become uncontrollable. After hanging up the phone, Yanli walked to the terrace on the second floor, his deep cold eyes frozen into ice chips. 15 years ago, the school went on a spring outing to the mountains. On their way back, they encountered a landslide on the mountain road. All the teachers and classmates died in the disaster. Only he was found and rescued by a girl in the dark. He gave the only what she had to the girl as a token of their future meeting, and then he fell into a coma. When he woke up, his grandfather had already taken people to take him to the hospital. 5 years later, Yang Chushi came to him with the watch. He thought he would be very happy, but for some reason he did not fall in love with Yang Chushi, his savior. He just promised her that he would give her the wealth and glory she wanted. This is also the reason why she chose to betray Yang Chushi when she knew that their Ji family's business was in trouble. After he turned the tide and took over the Ji family's mess and made Ji's family the richest man, Yang Chushi came back to please him and did not drive her away. The fact that he and Shen Luofei had a baby was purely an accident. What he hated most was Shen Luofei's selfishness, giving birth to a baby but not raising it. Now because of Yusha's illness, he couldn't drive her away. Yanli suddenly became very annoyed. Inside the hotel, Shen Luofei was thinking about how to take Ruibao away from Yanli's bodyguards and escape from here, when she received a video call from her best friend Xuanyu. She turned down the volume of the video, glanced back at Yushi who was sleeping soundly, and went to the bathroom before answering the call. In the video, Xuanyu looked anxious and guilty. Luofei, I want to apologize to you. Ruibao is missing. My brother checked the surveillance and found that Ruibao secretly hid in his plane and came to Huacheng. After that, Ruibao disappeared. My brother is looking for Ruibao everywhere. Xuanyu was so anxious that she was about to cry, but Shen Luofei smiled and comforted her. Enyu, I know about this. I was just about to tell you. Tell Mu Zi to stop looking for him. Ruibao is in my room. Xuanyu breathed a sigh of relief after hearing this. But the next second, Shen Luofei looked sad. Enyu, I met Yanli. Chapter 7, Escape from his eyes. Xuanyu's expression tensed again. That damn scumbag didn't embarrass you, did he? Xuanyu became angry when she thought about how Shen Luofei had suffered all kinds of grievances during the 2 years of their marriage, and how she was ruthlessly dumped by him in the end. After she left, the pregnant Shen Luofei was forced to have nowhere to hide. Shen Luofei briefly recounted the thrilling process of how Yanli almost discovered Ruibao. She knew that given Yanli's vengeful character, he would definitely come back to settle the score with her. It would be very dangerous for her to stay in the hotel now, and she had to leave immediately. After Shu Enyu scolded Ji Yanli again, he made the suggestion. Luofei, my brother has been invited to Huacheng to participate in a large-scale research project near Luoyang Island. He will find a way to save you. Shen Luofei owed Shu Muzhi and Shu Enyuan too much. She didn't want to drag Shu Muzhi into the water this time, so she chose to refuse. Enyu, this is a feud between Ji Yanli and me. I can't trouble Mu Ziyi anymore. Shu Enyuan said righteously. Luofei, you are being polite. The most important thing now is not to let Ji Yanli find out about Ruibao. Huacheng is his territory, and it will be difficult for you to snatch Ruibao from him. So listen to me and wait for news. Shu Enyu was right. The most important thing right now was to bring Ruibao to a safe place. After coming out of the bathroom, Shen Luofei saw Yushi stretching and sitting up from the quilt with a tired look on his face. Mommy. Hearing Yushi's soft, baby voice, Shen Luofei's heart melted. She quickly walked to the bed, opened her arms and hugged the gurgling Yushi. Yushi threw himself into his mother's milk-scented body and was immediately lifted up. Baby, are you awake? Yushi nodded shyly, probably because it was the first time in 4 years that he slept so soundly next to his mother. So do you want to leave here? Yushi raised his chubby little face, blinked his long eyelashes, and felt a little conflicted inside. Although Daddy is very good to him, after interacting with Mommy just now, he wants to spend more time with her even more. Yes. Mommy, where are we going? Yushi's big eyes were filled with anticipation. Take you to a fun and safe place. Shen Luofei kissed the little guy on the forehead, and then began to comb his hair and dress him. Not long after, Shen Luofei received a message from Shu Enyu. Ji Yanli's people have been led away by my brother's people. You should quickly take Ruibao to exit E. There is a car waiting to pick you up at the door. Although Ji Yanli's people were sent away, there were surveillance cameras in the hotel corridors, and Shen Luofei absolutely could not let Ji Yanli discover Ruibao's existence. The surveillance in the corridor was easy to deal with. She took out her cell phone and hacked into the hotel's surveillance system, blacking out all the surveillance on this floor, the lobby, and the road to exit E. Surveillance can be erased, but human eyes cannot be erased. How can we prevent people from seeing Ruibao? Seeing that Mommy's eyebrows were furrowed, Yushi baby asked softly and considerately, Mommy, have you encountered any difficulties? Yeah. After Shen Luofei finished speaking, Yushi baby smiled and pointed to the suitcase on the side. Mommy, my body will fit in the suitcase so no one will find it. Shen Luofei suddenly realized. She rubbed the little guy's furry hair. My dear, you are so smart. After receiving praise from his mother, baby Yushi blushed shyly again. Shen Luofei took out all the clothes in the suitcase and put them in the closet. Then Yushi cooperated by shrinking his body so that the suitcase was just the right size. Then, Shen Luofei put on some exaggerated heavy makeup, put on a hat and scarf, and carefully dragged her suitcase out of the hotel. She found that Ji Yanli's bodyguards seemed to have decreased. She looked up and saw exit E. She concealed her excitement and walked over quickly. However, when she was only a few steps away from exit E, a bodyguard in a black suit stopped her. She was forced to stop. What's your name? Where are you going? Keep your head up. My name is Mi Bai. I'm going on a date with my lover. His car is outside. Please don't waste my time. Shen Luofei raised his head, showing an exaggerated smile, and flirting with the bodyguard in a frivolous way. The bodyguard looked at the photo on the phone, and then saw Shen Luofei's grimacing face, and felt like vomiting. The bodyguard frowned in disgust, his eyes fixed on her suitcase. You're going on a date, what suitcase do you bring? Open it and check it. Shen Luofei was stunned for a moment. If he opened the suitcase, wouldn't he find Ruibao? Shen Luofei smiled coquettishly and spoke in a particularly artificial clipped voice. These are all personal sex toys. I'm afraid you won't be able to bear it, little brother. The bodyguard shuddered and took a step back solemnly. Open. Shen Luofei pursed her lips in displeasure, and just before she was about to open the suitcase, she suddenly pointed behind the bodyguard and exclaimed. Boss Ji, why are you here? Upon hearing that President Ji was coming, the bodyguard turned around in panic. Shen Luofei took the opportunity to quickly run to the car with the suitcase. By the time the bodyguard realized he had been cheated and was about to chase after the car had already left Luoyang Hotel. Shen Luofei breathed a sigh of relief. then quickly opened the suitcase, and baby Yushi's little head immediately popped out. Ruibao, are you okay? She was afraid that Ruoren would feel suffocated and was worried to death. This was the first time that the law-abiding Yushi experienced such an exciting thing, and his heart was pounding. Mommy, I'm fine. That's good. Mr. Driver, where are we going next? It's like this, Miss Luofei, Mr. Muzi has already arranged everything for you. He has a vacant villa in East Lake of Huacheng. You can live there first. In order to prevent Ji Yanli from discovering her whereabouts, Shen Luofei didn't even dare to buy a house in her own name and could only live in Shumuzher's house. On the other side, the bodyguard reported to Ji Yanli in trembling fear. Boss Ji, Shen Luofei ran away. How can a living person escape right under our noses? You idiot, hurry up and find him. Ji Yanli clenched his hands into fists, veins bulged on his forehead, and a storm was brewing in his deep, narrow eyes. Bodyguard, everyone said Shen Luofei was a first-rate cold beauty, but who knew she would wear such gaudy makeup and behave so frivolously, which is why they were fooled. After being brought back to the room by the housekeeper last night, Ruoren looked around Yushi's room. The first thing he found was Yushi's photos. There were various photos from when Yushi was 1 year old to 4 years old. He was not wrong, he and Yushi looked exactly like each other. There were many books on the bookshelf in the room, including those on computers and finance. He flipped through them and saw that they were all profound and difficult adult books that even today's doctoral students might not be able to understand. Ruoren just yawned while reading. Yushi must be very bored to read such a dull book at such a young age. Ruoren has already accepted the fact that he and Yushi have exchanged identities. Now he wants to meet his twin brother. However, the villa is full of his father's bodyguards. How can he avoid them and find Ruoren? Chapter 8, Sleep with You Tonight. Boss G, we traced the license plate number of the car that took Shen Luofei away and found that the license plate is fake. Ji Yanli's handsome face was covered with a layer of haze, and he looked sharply at the bodyguard who came to report. Immediately block all major airports, ports and train stations. Even if you have to dig up the entire Flower City, you must find her. I only give you 3 days. Ji Yanli issued a death order, and the bodyguards all lowered their heads in fear. Yes, President Ji. Were there any clues left in her room? We carefully checked the room where Shen Luofei lived and found that Miss Shen did not take any clothes with her. Hearing this, Ji Yanli frowned and narrowed his eyes dangerously. Everyone present saw Shen Luofei dragging a suitcase that seemed very heavy, but there were no clothes in it. So what could it be? Ji Yanli immediately had a terrible thought. Could it be that this woman had stolen Yushi again? Ji Yanli quickly dialed the villa's phone. It was Butler Li who answered the phone. Master. Ji Yanli asked nervously, is the young master home? Yes, I just went upstairs to deliver food to the young master. Ji Yanli breathed a sigh of relief, but was brought up again the next second by the butler's words. Master, please come back soon. The young master is angry and refuses to eat. He is still so young, what if he gets hungry? Butler Li was so anxious that he almost cried. This little bastard is really endless. Ji Yanli held his forehead with a headache and said, I'll be back right away. At the Ji family villa, Butler Li knocked on the door and walked in with delicious food. Young master, I asked the kitchen to make your favorite pineapple shrimp. You are growing up now, so you must not go hungry. Ruoren, who was lying on the bed, smelled the aroma of the food. He glanced at the delicious food with his big eyes, and finally looked away with difficulty. He swallowed and told himself that he must hold on for the success of the plan, even though baby Ruoren hadn't eaten for a day and was already starving. He simply closed his eyes and snorted, take it away, I don't want to eat it. Hey, young master, if this goes on, the eldest master will be distressed. When mentioning the Ji Yanli, Rui Ran's face became even more sour. Don't lie to me. Daddy would rather I starve to death than he would feel bad. Ji Yushi, what are you talking about? When did Daddy ever wish you were dead? The next second, Ruoren heard his father's serious voice above his head. Ruoren's little body tensed up instantly, and he slowly opened his eyes, looking at Ji Yanli's angry gaze. Daddy is so scary when he gets angry. Master. Ji Yanli glanced at the untouched food in the butler's hand and said, you go out first. The housekeeper looked at the angry Rui Ran and said, Master, the young master was just naughty for a moment, please don't blame him. After Ji Yanli rushed home in a hurry, he was really annoyed when he heard the little guy's words. He has been both a father and a mother to raise him in the past few years. The originally well-behaved Yushi has now become against him in every way. He remembered Suibai's warning that he cannot scold Yushi because doing so will make Yushi's condition worse. Ruoren confronted him stubbornly. Even if his father abused him, he would never compromise. Looking at the stubborn little guy who was 80% similar to himself, Yanli sighed helplessly. Perhaps I have been too busy with work over the years and neglected to care for Yushi, which has caused Yushi to miss his mother more and affected his mind. Yanli sat down gently on the edge of the bed. Ruoren saw his father's hand raised. He bit his lips tightly, fearfully waiting for his father's slap to fall. However, Daddy's hand finally rested on his little hand, and Yanli spoke in a rare gentle voice. Yushi, it's Daddy's fault. Daddy apologizes to you. You can't starve yourself just because you're angry with Daddy. Be good and get up and go downstairs to eat. Ruoren blinked in disbelief. What happened to Daddy? Why did he suddenly change his personality? To be honest, he was a little uncomfortable with such a gentle daddy. Since his father had already apologized, he would give him a way out. Ruoren climbed up from the bed and pouted. Okay, I'll forgive Dad today, and it won't happen again. Yanli was stunned. He usually said, don't do it again, but it sounded strange coming from Yushi's mouth. What do you want to eat? I'll ask the kitchen to make you what you like. Ruibao suddenly had an idea, and he immediately became energetic even though he was sick just now. Daddy, I don't want to eat the food cooked at home. I know a restaurant that serves delicious food. Let's go there to eat. Shen Luofei and baby Yushi sat in the car for 3 hours before they reached the villa area in the suburbs. The villa here was built on a mountain on an isolated island, surrounded by sea water on all sides. It is not shown on the map and is easy to defend but difficult to attack. Shumuja arranged for himself and Ruibao to live here, which can be said to be a well-intentioned decision. Ms. Shen, the villa has been cleaned. If you have any other needs, you can call me at any time. The driver told Shen Luofei the phone number. After thanking him, Shen Luofei took Yushi into the villa. This villa has 2 floors. The room is on the 2nd floor and the decoration is very warm and elegant. Ruibao, we will live here temporarily from now on. Which room do you like? There are 5 rooms on the 2nd floor. Shen Luofei had made up her mind that once the work here was completed, she would immediately take Ruibao back to Xiong country and never come back. Baby Yushi grabbed her mother's warm big hand and pointed to the princess room decorated entirely in pink. Shen Luofei thought he would choose a boys' children's room, but unexpectedly Ruibao chose such a feminine-style bedroom. Shen Luofei squatted down and asked again in confusion. Ruibao, are you sure you want this one? Yushi looked at her mother's beautiful face and nodded slightly. Ruibao, you said before that you don't like pink the most. If we say that before Ruibao was not able to adapt to the new environment because it was his first time going abroad, but now it seems that even his favorite color has changed. Faced with Mommy's questioning tone, Yushi's smile froze and his little heart skipped a beat. It's over, Ruoren doesn't he like pink, has he revealed a flaw? Yushi seemed a little flustered, his head turned around, and then he explained. That's because Mommy is a girl, and in my heart Mommy is a princess. Princesses on TV all like pink. I want to sleep with Mommy tonight. Yushi has never slept with Mommy yet. Mommy's arms are so sweet and soft, it must be very comfortable. Baby, it turns out you did this all for Mommy. I love you so much. When baby Yushi was nervously waiting for his mother, Shen Luofei surprisingly hugged his little face and kissed him again and again, making baby Yushi feel embarrassed. Ruibao, Mommy promised to sleep with you tonight. Now Mommy will help you take off your clothes and go take a shower. Hearing this, the smile on Yushi's face froze instantly, and he said embarrassedly, Mommy, no need. Chapter 9, 2 Little Ones Meet. Shen Luofei looked confused, why? Yushi's eyes wandered around, and he said shyly, I'm a boy, and Mommy is a girl, so I can take a bath by myself. When Shen Luofei saw Yushi's shy look, she couldn't help but pinch his little face and almost laugh to death. Ruoren, you're still shy. Mommy was the one who gave you the bath before. Yushi couldn't help but widen his eyes. In the past, at most his daddy would give him a bath, and he didn't know how his daddy was doing. Seeing the little guy so frightened, Shen Luofei decided not to tease him anymore. Okay, mommy will prepare the water for you, and you can go take a bath by yourself, okay. Yushi then breathed a sigh of relief, then smelled the sweat on his body and nodded. Because Shen Luofei missed Ruren, she took a set of Ruren's clothes with her when she left, which came in handy. Yushi took the casual suit with cartoon tigers printed on it from his mother and said reluctantly, "Thank you." After taking a bath, Yushi hesitated for a long time before putting on Ruren's clothes. This younger brother of his is good in every way except that his dressing style is a bit childish. "Ruibao, are you okay?" "Mommy, I'm fine." Shen Luofei smiled when she saw the little guy coming out of the bathroom awkwardly. "Ruibao, you like this dress the most. It seems like you don't like it anymore." "No, I love it." "Mommy, I'm hungry." Yushi quickly changed the subject. While he was taking a shower, Shen Luofei went to the kitchen to look for food. It seemed that no one had lived here for a long time, so the refrigerator was empty. The key point is that this place is too remote to even order takeout, so it seems that I can only take Yushi to a restaurant at the foot of the mountain to eat. Shen Luofei took Yushi to the Côte d'Azur restaurant at the foot of the mountain for dinner. At this time, Xu Enyu sent her a WeChat message, telling her that this was Xu Muzher's private area and Ji Yanli could not enter, so they could stay there without worry. After Shen Luofei thanked Xu Enyu and Xu Muzher again, he handed the menu to Yushi. "Ruibao, order whatever you like." Yushi saw the barbecue, fried chicken and cola set meal on the menu and swallowed subconsciously. Dad is usually strict and never lets him eat junk food. Yushi once saw his kindergarten classmates eating delicious food and he was very envious. "Mommy, I want fried chicken." "Okay, no problem." Seeing the little guy's expectant eyes, Shen Luofei couldn't bear to refuse. "Thank you, Mommy." Yushi is so happy. On the other side, Ji Yanli pursed his lips and asked his assistant Martin Fei impatiently, "How long will it take?" The restaurant was designated by Yushi, but we drove for nearly 2 hours and still hadn't arrived, and it was already dark. "Boss Ji, there are still 10 minutes left." Ji Yanli's gaze suddenly fell on the little guy's face, and Ruren's eyes were filled with undisguised expectation. "Yushi, why did you recommend this remote restaurant?" Ruren suppressed his emotions and explained seriously. "Because the salmon in this restaurant is the best in the world, Dad, you'll know when you try it." Is that really the case? Or is he overthinking it, and always feels that Yushi seems to be hiding something? Daddy is really suspicious. Baby Ruren sat upright and didn't dare to look around. The reason why he chose to come to this restaurant for dinner was because he installed a positioning tracker on Mommy, and Mommy and brother Yushi should be in the restaurant now. Baby Yushi can finally drink Coke as much as he wants. Maybe he drank too much and he felt the urge to pee. He squeezed his legs together and looked at Shen Luofei with a red face. "Mommy, I want to go to the bathroom." Shen Luofei quickly put down her knife and fork. "Mommy will go with you." "No, Mommy, I'm going to the men's room." "I can do it." It was not convenient for her to go into the men's restroom, but she could wait outside. Although it was safe here, she was worried about letting Ruibao out of her sight. Just as she stood up, her cell phone rang. It was Xu Muzher. Yushi couldn't hold back and ran out first. "Luofei, I'm sorry, I'm too busy with work here and I can't see you. Are you and Ruibao okay?" Xu Mu's voice, as gentle as jade, came from the phone. "Brother Muzi, I should be the one who is embarrassed. Ruibao is naughty. I trouble you to provide us with accommodation. I will pay you according to the market rent. Luofei, if you bring up money in our relationship, it will hurt our feelings. Brother Muzi, you have helped us so much. I know you don't need this little money, but..." Shen Luofei didn't know how to repay the favor he owed him. "Luofei, you and Enyu are good friends. In my heart, you are also my sister. It is natural for a brother to help his sister. There is no need to say such things anymore." Having said that, Shen Luofei didn't insist any further. Baby Yushi finally came out of the toilet comfortably. At the corner, he bumped into a little guy. Yushi touched his little head, looked closely, and found that there was a little boy who looked like him standing in front of him. Except that they were dressed differently, the little guy opposite was wearing a formal suit and leather shoes, while he was wearing a cartoon sportswear. The two little ones opened their eyes wide and looked at each other without blinking. They saw themselves in each other's eyes. It was too magical. Although they had already guessed each other's identity and knew of each other's existence, they were still a little surprised when they met suddenly. Amidst the surprise and astonishment, the lively Ruoren was the first to speak. "Hello, you must be Yushi, I'm Ruoren, let's go over there." Yushi nodded excitedly, and the two little ones quickly ran to a private room without surveillance and sat down. "Hello Ruoren, I'm Yushi." Yushi stretched out his little hand, and Ruoren immediately stretched out his little hand as well. The two little hands held each other tightly, just like the hearts of two brothers firmly pressed together. "Brother Ruoren, we should be twins. We swapped identities by mistake." The two little ones were no longer shocked and alienated, and soon they started talking intimately. "Yeah, brother Yushi, I guessed it too." The two kids quickly told each other about their exchange, and only then did they realize how many twists and turns had happened in between. "Yushi, why are you at Daddy's house?" Ruoren racked his brains but couldn't figure it out. Yushi was as calm as ever and shook his head. "I don't know the details, but I once heard Daddy get angry and say that Mommy disliked me because I was weak and sick, so she left me to Daddy to raise." Seeing Yushi's sad look, Ruoren clenched his fists and retorted angrily. "No, Daddy lied. Something went wrong when Mommy gave birth, and she thought you were gone. Mommy was sad for a long time because of this." Yushi's big eyes lit up and he asked excitedly, "Really? Mommy doesn't actually want me?" Ruobao was so angry that he almost turned into a puffer fish. "Of course, Mommy loves us so much, how could she abandon you? I think Daddy is deliberately slandering Mommy in order to take you away." Chapter 10. I hope Mommy and Daddy get back together. Ruoren, maybe there is some misunderstanding. Although Daddy looks very serious and fierce, he is actually very good to me. Especially after I fell ill, Daddy took care of me without taking off his clothes. Now that Mommy is back, Yushi hopes that Daddy and Mommy can get back together so that their family of four can be together completely. Ruoren has a very bad impression of his daddy now, so he must say something good about him. Ruoren heard with his own ears that Daddy cursed Mommy to death, and he said with disgust on his face, "Yushi, stop speaking well for that unfaithful man. By the way, are you feeling better now?" It was one thing for Ruoren to hate his dad, but he really liked this brother. He grew up healthy with his mommy, but Yushi was weak and grew up with his bad daddy, so he was much more pitiful than himself. Yushi hesitated for a few seconds, as if to comfort the worried Ruoren. "I am in much better health now. I haven't been sick for many years." "That's good." Ruoren breathed a sigh of relief and looked at the time. "Yushi, we can't stay here for too long. Daddy's people will be here soon. Do you want to stay with Mommy or go back to Daddy?" Although Ruoren is the younger brother, he is very sensible. Yushi has just experienced maternal love. If he suggests that they return to their original positions, it will definitely hurt Yushi's heart, so he gives the choice to Yushi. Yushi became depressed. He really didn't want to leave his mommy, but he knew Ruoren didn't like Daddy, and he couldn't be so selfish as to occupy Ruoren's position. "Brother, come to Mommy's place. I'll go back to Daddy's place." Just when Yushi was reluctantly taking off his clothes, Ruoren stopped him. "Yushi, I think you should go to Mommy first, and I'll deal with the bad daddy." Yushi was so happy that Ruoren finally tried to accept his daddy, so he made a bold proposal. Ruoren, actually Daddy and Mommy don't know about our existence. Why don't we tell them our respective identities, so that we don't have to hide anymore?" After hearing this, Ruoren shook his little head like a rattle. "No, now is not the right time. If Daddy knew there was an old me, he would definitely fight with Mommy for custody. And if Mommy knew you were still alive, she would also fight with Daddy for you. Their relationship is so bad. Besides, even though Mommy is very powerful now, she is still inferior to Daddy. You don't want Mommy to be sad, do you?" "Yeah, I didn't think it through. How about this, we can bring Daddy and Mommy back together, and we don't have to separate." After he finished speaking, Ruoren frowned and was silent for a few seconds before he continued. "Daddy forced Mommy to divorce because of Yang Chushi's mistress. He is the one who let Mommy down. It is said that a good horse never turns back. Besides, there are so many handsome uncles pursuing Mommy now, and they all have better tempers than Daddy. I don't think there is any need to get back together. Uncle Shumuse is very suitable to be Mommy's new boyfriend." Yushi was very anxious when Ruoren had this idea. It was Yang Chushi who pestered Daddy, and Daddy doesn't like her at all. Besides, no matter how good other uncles are, they are not our biological daddy after all. Ruoren, don't jump to conclusions yet. You and daddy should continue to get along for a while, and then we'll see if we should give him a chance to pursue mommy, okay? What Yushi said made some sense. If he were asked to call Uncle Muzi daddy, he would feel a little resistant inside. Ruoren raised his head and looked at Yushi's sincere face. Okay, I'll give daddy some more time. Before leaving, Ruoren gave Yushi the positioning tracking bracelet he invented. This bracelet also has the function of video calls, so that the two can contact each other at any time in the future. Shen Luofei saw that Ruoren had not returned to the box yet. Could something have happened? Shen Luofei ran towards the toilet in a hurry, but not far ahead she heard hurried footsteps, followed by a man's voice. Boss G, we searched the restroom, but we can't find it. A chill ran straight from the soles of his feet to his heart, and Shen Luofei quickly hid his body behind the fire door on the stairs. Whatever she thought came true, Yanli actually found this place so quickly. She was worried about Ruibao's safety. Keep looking. Seal off this place immediately. Not even a fly can be allowed to fly out. Yanli's extremely cold voice sounded eerily in the corridor. Yes, President G. Afterwards, Yanli stretched out his long legs and walked quickly downstairs, but he suddenly stopped at the stairs and looked straight at the fire door with his deep and cold eyes. Oh no, won't Yanli find out? Shen Luofei's heart began to beat wildly. She was not afraid of a head-on confrontation with Yanli, but she was afraid that Yanli would find out about Ruoren's existence and then snatch the child from her. Yanli stared at the door intently. There seemed to be a familiar fragrance in the air. Was it her? He searched the entire city but couldn't find Shen Luofei's whereabouts. Unexpectedly, he found her here. However, the suspicious Yanli suddenly thought of something. Yushi insisted on coming here to eat, and took advantage of the time to go to the toilet to disappear. Did he go to see Shen Luofei? Shen Luofei secretly met Yushi without telling him? What qualifications does a scumbag who abandoned her own child have to come to see Yushi with such a flattering face? Yanli's chest was instantly filled with anger. Shen Luofei's back was pressed against the cold wall, but she was sweating all over and she didn't dare to breathe. She heard the sound of leather shoes stepping on the ground getting closer and closer, and she clenched her fists, ready to fight with Yanli at any time. Daddy! Just as the fire door was about to be kicked open, Yanli heard Yushi's voice. He immediately turned around and saw Yushi waving at him. His tense heart relaxed instantly, and he quickly walked to the private room in the corridor and hugged Yushi. Where have you been? Ruoren explained without changing his expression. I got lost after I came out of the toilet. It took me a long time to find my dad. I'm full and very sleepy. Let's go home. Ruoren yawned in Yanli's arms, then leaned into his arms with a tired face and closed his eyes. Fortunately, Yushi was not abducted by Shen Luofei. Daddy will take you home right now. Yanli's tone became a little gentler, but when he carried Yushi away, his sharp eyes still glanced towards the fire door. Shen Luofei's heart was pounding. She waited for a long time and found that there was no movement outside. She quietly opened the door, but there was no trace of Yanli outside the corridor. She seemed to have heard a kid calling daddy just now, and the voice was somewhat similar to Ruoren's. Ruoren, where is Ruoren? Could he have been captured by Yanli? Just when she was getting flustered, baby Yushi quickly rushed into her arms and called out in a baby voice, Mommy. Chapter 11 Miss Shen dates a man. The tense string in Shen Luofei's mind completely broke, and she hugged the baby tightly in her arms. Ruibao, I was scared to death just now, where did you go? Yushi heard that his mother's voice was hoarse and even her hands that were holding him were shaking. The little guy apologized very guiltily. Mommy, I'm sorry. I went to the wrong room after I came out of the bathroom, which delayed me. Shen Luofei felt a little weak all over, and she looked at Yushi nervously. Ruibao, did you meet any strange people when you came here just now? Of course Yushi understood that the strange person Mommy was referring to was Daddy. As soon as he and Ruoren separated, he saw that Daddy seemed to have discovered Mommy's trace. So he contacted Ruoren urgently, and Ruoren appeared and took Daddy away. He naturally appeared beside Mommy in place of Ruoren. Yushi shook his head violently. No, when I came here, I saw Mommy here alone. In order to avoid Yanli's surprise attack, Shen Luofei packed up the unfinished food in the restaurant and quickly took Yushi back to the villa. Mommy, you don't look well, would you like a cup of hot milk? Baby Yushi asked caringly. Shen Luofei forced a smile and reached out to rub the little guy's head. Mommy is fine, you should get some rest early. Mommy, can you sleep with me tonight? Baby Yushi is particularly attached to Shen Luofei. Of course, Mommy will come and keep you company after taking a bath. Shen Luofei lay in the bathtub and calmed down. She found that the voice in her head became clearer and clearer. Before, she suspected that Ruren was taken away by Yanli, but now Ruren is alive and well by her side. If that child is not Ruren, who could it be? She immediately sent a message to her assistant Tang Shisha, asking her to check about the children around Yanli. Not long after, Tang Shisha replied that Yanli did have a biological son who was 5 years old, but because the Ji family protected the young master's identity very well, no photos of him were leaked. As for the young master's biological mother, there are rumors that Yang Chushi is the child's biological mother. Tang Shisha also specifically emphasized that whether Yang Chushi is really the young master's biological mother still needs further verification. However, Shen Luofei told Tang Shisha that there was no need to investigate. She believed that the biological mother of Ji Yanli's son was Yang Chushi. After all, he divorced to make room for his first love, Yang Chushi. Perhaps Yang Chushi was pregnant at that time. As for why the two of them haven't held a wedding even though they already have a child, it is said that it was because of Ji Yanli's grandmother's obstruction. To be exact, during the 2 years that she and Ji Yanli were married, the people in the Ji family who treated her best were Grandpa Ji and Grandma Ji. Unfortunately, Grandpa Ji died of illness not long after she left. The past is like smoke, and Shen Luofei instantly returned to reality from that memory. Since that bastard Ji Yanli already has a child, why does he come to mess with them? Does he really think that Shen Luofei is easy to bully? The next day, baby Yushi woke up in his mother's soft and sweet arms for the first time, and he immediately felt so happy. Baby, you must be hungry. Mommy will make you breakfast, okay? Okay, thank you mommy. Ruren said that mommy's cooking skills are amazing. Baby Yushi has never eaten it and is very much looking forward to it. Shen Luofei kissed Yushi on the forehead. Baby, wait for me. After mommy went to make breakfast, Yushi quickly opened the bracelet and sent a message to Ruren, asking about the situation over there. Ruren replied quickly that he was fine and his daddy hadn't noticed anything. Yushi also said that it was safe at mommy's place and mommy even made breakfast for him. When Ruren heard that his mommy was making breakfast, his saliva was about to flow out. Although daddy's family are all world-famous 5-star chefs, Ruren feels that the food is not as delicious as mommy's cooking. After Yushi learned of Ruren's idea, he apologized and said that they could exchange for a while if they had the chance in the future. However, Ruren said nonchalantly that there was no rush and he wanted to spend a few more days with his daddy. This morning Ruren overheard Daddy and Grandma talking on the phone. Grandma wanted Daddy to attend a grand banquet, and Daddy agreed reluctantly. Ruren knew that his bad grandma had bad intentions. She went there to work in name only, but in reality she was introducing a girlfriend to his dad. Maybe that scheming green tea girl would get over it. In short, he would never let green tea become Yushi's stepmother. At the dining table, Yushi was eating breakfast obediently, quietly and politely. Shen Luofei had an illusion for a moment that Ruren was always casual when eating. Yushi looked up and saw mommy looking at him inquiringly. He felt a little guilty, wondering if mommy had discovered anything. However, the next second Shen Luofei's cell phone rang. While his mother was answering the call, Yushi patted his chest. It seemed that he had to learn more about Ruren's habits and hobbies in the future and imitate him more closely, otherwise he would be exposed soon. Ruren said that mommy hates children lying the most. Sister Luofei, there is a high-level academic exchange banquet at the International Island Hotel tonight. Among the guests coming are many of Huachin's top entrepreneurs and famous doctors. You are also on the invitation list. I have prepared the banquet dress for you. Shen Luofei actually disliked attending this kind of banquet the most, but Shumujer's various research and developments in the Xiangguo Research Institute required huge funds and powerful medicinal materials, especially the medicinal materials needed for the upgraded version of Birafei she developed, which were simply not available on the market and were only available in a few monopoly pharmaceutical groups in Huachen. Whether it is to repay Shumujer or to allow these anti-cancer drugs to treat more patients, she must go to this banquet. Sister Luofei, the G group is attending the banquet this time. Tang Shisha had to remind her. G Group's business covers real estate, communications, the internet, logistics and express delivery, major high-end clothing, shoes, hats, bags, cosmetics, artificial intelligence, aerospace. In recent years, G Group has focused on developing the medical field. Many top domestic hospitals have invested in G Group, and G Group has spent a lot of money to recruit researchers in the medical field. If nothing unexpected happens, G Group will soon invite Shen Luofei to join. Yanli already has a child, so he shouldn't come to snatch Ruren away. As long as she hides Ruren well, there will be nothing to be afraid of even if she faces him. Yanli's action was simply revenge on her for the humiliating words she had written 5 years ago. It doesn't matter. I'm not afraid of him. As long as I don't choose to cooperate with the G Group, it will be fine. She just didn't believe that she couldn't find any other group for investment cooperation except G's. Before Yanli went to the banquet, Martin Fei reported the information he had found. Boss G, Miss Shen is returning to China alone this time. She is here to receive an award and look for a pharmaceutical partner. Originally, the organizer planned to hold an awards ceremony at Luoyang Island Hotel the day after she returned, but Shen Luofei did not attend. Instead, she asked her assistant Tang Shisher to accept the award on her behalf. By the way, Miss Shen didn't use her real name this time, but Amelia. Are you sure there's no one else with her? This. Hurry up and tell me. We haven't found anyone else around Miss Shen yet, but the box you suspect contains sex toys. Miss Shen said she was going on a date with a man. Chapter 12. She has to cover her vest. Tonight the International Island Hotel is packed with guests and luxury cars, making it very lively. Shen Luofei made a stunning appearance in a pure white star-studded dress, with a delicate and beautiful face and slightly curly chestnut hair. She looked like a goddess descending from the sky, attracting countless films at once. That beautiful lady looks so unfamiliar. Which rich family's daughter is she? From time to time, people in the crowd talked about her, and some even wanted to approach her and chat with her, but Shen Luofei ignored them all. On the surface, this banquet was for academic exchange, but as soon as she came in, Shen Luofei felt that it was a blind date banquet for wealthy families. She had no interest in these rich young men. Miss Amelia, is it really you? At this time, the sponsor, Yun Feiyang, the president of Yun Pharmaceutical, walked towards Shen Luofei in surprise. Shen Luofei's gaze fell on Yun Feiyang's shrewd face. She walked forward and greeted him politely. Hello, Mr. Yun, I'm Amelia. Yun Feiyang is about 40 years old, with a slender figure and handsome face. Both his face and figure are well maintained and you can't tell at all that he is middle-aged. Miss Amelia, I didn't expect that you are actually such a beauty. Your medical skills are so amazing. I have always wanted to meet you, but you are too low-key. I have only heard of you but never seen you. I am so excited that you can come today. Yun Feiyang's words were full of admiration and praise for Shen Luofei. Boss Yun, you are too kind. Everyone knows that Yun's Pharmaceutical is the largest pharmaceutical base in the country. I will need to learn from you and cooperate with you more in the future. Shen Luofei responded calmly and gracefully. Of course. If our Yun's Pharmaceutical can have excellent R&D personnel like Miss Amelia, it will be a blessing for our Yun's Pharmaceutical. Yun Feiyang is indeed an old fox in the business world. Although he is full of praise for her, from his words, he seems to be not interested in cooperating with Shen Luofei, but hopes to let Shen Luofei join his pharmaceutical group. After all, the compensation earned from cooperating with her is not as much as the benefits she can get from working for her own group. Shen Luofei did not agree with Yun Feiyang. When she looked up, she saw a crowd suddenly rushing towards the gate. Master G actually came to the party. Master G is even more handsome than he appeared on TV. Oh, my girlish heart has been conquered. Hearing this, Shen Luofei's heart beat violently. She couldn't help but look in the direction of her sight, and a tall and straight figure jumped into her sight. Yanli was wearing a high-end, hand-tailored black suit today. His every move exuded an aristocratic temperament, and his innate sense of abstinence was extremely charming. Shen Luofei already knew about Yanli's arrival, but he came faster than expected. Shen Luofei's purpose today was to discuss cooperation, and she didn't want to have a conflict with Yanli. She was thinking about simply avoiding him and coming back after Yanli left. But the next second, an extremely familiar and shrill clip sound was heard. Brother G, why don't you wait for me? Shen Luofei looked carefully and found that the woman who came in was none other than Yang Chushi. Yang Chushi was dressed very boldly tonight. She wore a pearl feather see-through dress that vaguely revealed her graceful figure, which aroused endless reverie. Those second generation's eyes were all wide open. After all, who doesn't he like sexy beauties? Is the woman next to Master Ji Yang Chushi? A handsome man and a beautiful woman, what a delight to the eyes. Where there are people who praise, there are people who refute. Tonight is an academic exchange meeting. Which socialite here is not dressed modestly? Yang Chushi's outfit is so revealing, it's really vulgar. She is really scheming to attract attention. Yang Chushi was originally very proud of being praised, but after hearing those mocking words, she straightened her chest even more. She even took the initiative to step forward and hold Ji Yanli's arm, declaring to those women who were jealous of her that the Lord had the power and only she could stand by Ji Yanli's side. Ji Yanli pursed her thin lips and glanced unhappily at Yang Chushi, who was holding her. She wanted to shake her off, but she held her even tighter. From Shen Luofei's perspective, the two of them looked as intimate as a couple in love. She warned herself that ever since her divorce, she had sealed her feelings for Ji Yanli into cement. No matter who Ji Yanli is within the future, she will not have any concerns. Yun's Pharmaceuticals has a century-old foundation and was about to monopolize the entire industry. However, who would have thought that Ji's group would suddenly appear and, under the fierce attack of Ji Yanli, was threatening to overtake Yun's Pharmaceuticals? Ji Yanli took the initiative to attend the exchange meeting this time. Could it be that he came here to compete for Amelia? The old fox Yun Feiyang showed his usual fake business smile and extended his hand to Ji Yanli in a friendly manner. Boss Ji, welcome to our Yun Group's medical exchange meeting. Yun Feiyang used the word we, which meant to tell Ji Yanli that no matter how powerful the Ji Group was, their Yun Group was the leader in the pharmaceutical industry. Ji Yanli glanced at Yun Feiyang coldly, without extending his hand, and said indifferently. Although the sponsor this time is Yun's Pharmaceutical, the organizer is the International Medical Organization Association. Yun Feiyang, relying on his age and seniority over Ji Yanli, wanted to suppress him, but Ji Yanli didn't give him any face at all. Yun Feiyang's face was instantly slapped, and his hand, which was stuck in the air, was awkwardly retracted. Seeing that the atmosphere was a bit tense, Yang Chushi, who thought of herself as their hostess, took the initiative to step forward and explain with a gentle smile. Boss Yun, Brother Ji originally didn't have time to attend, but I heard that Amelia would also be there tonight. She is a skilled doctor, and I wanted to learn from her. Brother Ji did this just to accompany me. Yang Chushi invisibly showed off her love in front of everyone. I see. Young Master Ji and Miss Yan's relationship is simply the envy of others. Yun Feiyang smiled meaningfully. Hearing this, Ji Yanli's face turned cold, his brows furrowed, and he glared at Yang Chushi. Doesn't this woman have any self-awareness? Does she know who Amelia is? Also, they are all blind, how can they see that he and Yang Chushi are in love? Ji Yanli shook off Yang Chushi's arm without leaving a trace, glanced at the crowd with sharp eyes, and directly stated his purpose. Has Qiao Yuyu, the head of Luo Yuezer Group, arrived? Luo Yuezer is a new company that has emerged in the past 3 years, focusing on pharmaceuticals and international luxury goods. Qiao Yuyu is the founder of Luo Yuezer, and has also won many awards in the fields of medicine and design. The Ji Group was impressed by Qiao Yuyu's abilities and wanted to cooperate with her, which is why Ji Yanli was willing to come. As for Yang Chushi, her profession is a doctor. She begged Ji Yanli to take her to study, and he reluctantly agreed. Boss Qiao is like a mysterious dragon that can only be seen from head to tail. I can't find her even if I want to. When Shen Luofei heard that Ji Yanli wanted to cooperate with Qiao Yuyu, her heart sank. She didn't want to cooperate with him, so she had to keep this identity secret. Chapter 13, Revenge for Revenge, Injustice for Injustice. Brother Ji, I heard that Amelia is here. How about we go see Amelia first? Yang Chushi seemed very jealous of Qiao Yuyu. Ji Yanli raised his eyebrows. Are you sure you want to see Amelia? What does Brother Ji mean by this? Of course, Brother Ji, I didn't tell you because I was afraid of disturbing your work. My uncle has cancer, and only Amelia can save him in this world. Yang Chushi looked so pitiful that she was about to cry. Yang Chushi's uncle has a terminal illness. This is really retribution. Shen Luofei recalled the past. She and Yang Chushi were classmates in junior high school. Yang Chushi was born in the countryside and came from a poor family. Therefore, when she first went to the city to study, she was often bullied by her classmates because of her rustic clothes and plain appearance. Only the kind-hearted Shen Luofei protected her. After a while, the two became good friends who could talk about anything. Shen Luofei told Yang Chushi that she liked Yanli. Yang Chushi encouraged her on the surface, but was plotting against her behind her back. Shen Luofei later realized that she was inviting a wolf into their house. She often took Yang Chushi to her home for dinner. When Yang Chushi saw the luxurious house and beautiful princess dress for the first time, she showed a greedy look. Not only did she use her to secretly seduce Yanli, she also deliberately made her aunt have an affair with Shen Luofei's father. In the end, not only did they cause her grandfather and mother to fall ill and die, but they also embezzled her grandfather's property. Shen Luofei was determined to study medicine because of her grandfather and mother. She and her father Shen Zhanxiang had broken up 5 years ago. Yang Chushi wanted her to treat the scumbag who killed her grandfather and mother and cheated on her husband, but she was dreaming. Over the years, Shen Luofei has been puzzled about the cause of death of her grandfather and mother. She returned to China this time to investigate thoroughly, but the progress was delayed because of Yanli. Since Yang Chushi came to me on his own initiative, I will take revenge if there is revenge, and settle grievances if there is grievance. Originally Shen Luofei wanted to avoid the seasonal banquet ceremony, but now it seems that is no longer necessary. She hasn't done anything bad, so why should she be afraid of them? Thinking of this, Shen Luofei straightened his chest and stood still. The next second, her eyes met Yanli's deep gaze unexpectedly. In an instant, lightning flashed in the eyes of the two people. When Yanli saw Shen Luofei, there was no trace of surprise on his handsome face, because he knew she would come. However, what surprised him was that Shen Luofei, wearing a pure white star-shaped dress today, looked noble and beautiful, like a fairy from heaven. She was completely different from the frivolous woman before. Yang Chushi saw Yanli's eyes fixed on a certain direction, and she subconsciously turned her gaze away. When she saw Shen Luofei's familiar face, she froze. When did Shen Luofei return to China? Shouldn't she have died abroad? She stared at the stunningly beautiful Shen Luofei without blinking. Did this woman have plastic surgery? Although Shen Luofei was beautiful before, she had no aura. Now, her facial features are stunning and her eyes reveal a coldness. She has a strong aura and a perfect figure, and exudes dignity and elegance from the inside out, especially the starry sky evening dress she is wearing. She tried her best to get it but failed, so she chose this sexier dress as the second best option. Unexpectedly, Shen Luofei wore it, and it looked so beautiful. She noticed from the corner of her eye that the originally indifferent Yanli's eye showed his admiration for Shen Luofei without any concealment, and there seemed to be some unknown emotion surging in them, which made Yang Chushi, who was already in danger, jealous. Looking at the couple in front of him, Shen Luofei said unhappily, "A good dog doesn't block the road. Brother Ji, how can she curse at me?" Yang Chushi immediately reported it, and the awkward sound of the clappers brought Yanli back to his senses. He was almost bewitched by this woman Shen Luofei. His eyes became unusually cold, and he was full of sneer and criticism. Shen Luofei, this is an academic exchange banquet, not a third-rate cocktail party where you can casually hook up with young men. This damn scumbag deliberately provoked a war. Shen Luofei remained calm and maintained a decent smile. I have a formal invitation to this seasonal banquet. Besides, if I fall in love with a handsome guy, that's my freedom. It's none of your business. Shen Luofei's beautiful counterattack immediately left Yanli speechless, and his handsome face was instantly covered with gloom. The two seemed to be quarreling, but Yang Chushi heard a hint of flirting in them. Yanli was so angry that Shen Luofei hooked up with other men because he cared about her. In the 5 years after Shen Luofei left, she tried every possible means to make Yanli look at her even more. If Shen Luofei hadn't come back, she could have slowly let Yanli accept her. But now that this time bomb is back, she absolutely cannot let them have the possibility of getting back together. Cousin Luofei, you are really back. Why didn't you tell me so I could pick you up? Shen Luofei had to turn her gaze to Yang Chushi next to her, only to see Yang Chushi excitedly stepping forward and almost grabbing her gloves. There was a look of disdain in Shen Luofei's eyes, and she shook off the hand that Yang Chushi extended in disgust. Yang Chushi hasn't changed at all over the years, and has mastered the art of tea to perfection. In front of Yanli and outsiders, she is a gentle and harmless little white flower, but behind her back she is a person of all 5 poisons. Even the femme fatale of the 5 poison sect are not as good at pretending as she is. Who are you? Are we familiar with each other? I don't have a cousin who is two-faced. Yang Chushi's smile froze in an instant as she was treated coldly. But she was thick-skinned and was not scared off by Shen Luofei's cold words. Instead, she continued to lick her face and said pitifully, Luofei, I know that no matter what I do, you don't like me, but I have always sincerely regarded you as my best friend. Besides, my aunt is gone, so we are relatives. In fact, my uncle and aunt missed you very much during the years you were away. They spent a lot of manpower and resources trying to find you, but couldn't find you. Now that you're back, we can be reunited again. When Shen Luofei heard Yang Chushi's confusing right and wrong remarks, his eyes suddenly became sharp. If Xu Enyu and his sister had not helped her escape, she would probably have been forced to death by her scumbag father and the mistress's family. These 2 executioners who caused her family to be destroyed were actually portrayed by Yang Chushi as kind-hearted and righteous people, which made her look ungrateful. Yang Chushi simply wanted to clear herself of the relationship between her scumbag father and his mistress, and then portray herself as a vicious ex-wife again. She was plotted against 5 years ago, and 5 years later she returned from the ashes, and Yang Chushi would never label her a scumbag again. Shen Luofei was like looking at a clown. She didn't get angry but laughed instead. You don't understand what I'm saying. I, Shen Luofei, don't have a backstabbing green tea girlfriend like you, and I don't have a shameless cousin like you. Please stop talking nonsense, or don't blame me for sending a lawyer's letter to sue you for defamation. Chapter 14 Brother G, I am innocent. Hearing this, Yang Chushi's pitiful little face was filled with embarrassment. She looked gloomy and looked at the gloomy Shen Luofei with great sadness, then forced out a few tears, as if she had suffered a great injustice. Luofei, I didn't expect you to hate me so much. Your divorce from Brother G had nothing to do with me. She enunciated each word clearly, and as if to prove that she was being wronged, her voice became sharper, without even the syllables. Shen Luofei took this opportunity to cover up the disgusting things she had done, clear her identity as a mistress, and then turn the tables again. Sure enough, her trick worked. Some second-generation people who were unaware of the truth and were deceived by green tea began to stand up for Yang Chushi. No wonder this woman looks so familiar. I remembered that she is the ex-wife abandoned by Master G. She was probably unwilling to be dumped by Master G, so she vented her anger on the innocent Yang Chushi. As far as I know, young Master G and Yang Chushi were first loves, and they were the ones who were supposed to get married. Who knew that Shen Luofei relied on her good family background to force young Master G to marry her? So that's how it is. She has taken over Yang Chushi's position as the young lady. Yang Chushi is so kind-hearted that she can let bygones be bygones. That's right. If it were me, I would tear Shen Luofei's hypocritical face apart. It's no wonder a vicious woman like her was abandoned. I heard that her grandfather and biological mother were also killed by her. As soon as these words were spoken, the onlookers stepped back as if they were looking at a monster, fearing that they would be infected with the virus. All kinds of fabricated and murderous words were directed at Shen Luofei. Shen Luofei's whole body was tense and his palms slowly clenched into fists. Oh, Shen Luofei is really embarrassing. She knew that Master G and Yang Chushi were going to get married, but she still showed up with such a shameless face. If I were her mother, I would be so angry that I would crawl out of my grave and beat her to death. Also, the security measures are too poor. Those who came here today are all well-known wealthy families and medical experts in Huacheng. How did a low-class trash like her get in? Not only did these people not stop, they even intensified their ridicule and humiliation of Shen Luofei. Shen Luofei's face was horrified. Just when she was about to retaliate, Yang Chushi, who had been fanning the flames and watching the show, spoke first. She first glanced at the gloomy-faced Shen Luofei with a pitying look, and then looked at the reasonable consolations from everyone. Everyone, please stop talking. What Luofei did to me in the past is in the past. Everyone makes mistakes. As long as Luofei knows his mistakes and can correct them. Yang Chushi wasn't defending her at all, she was clearly adding fuel to the fire. Shen Luofei knew that Yang Chushi was best at diverting trouble to others and killing others with a borrowed knife. She does all the good things and takes the blame for all the bad things. She was very good at controlling emotions and inciting people. Those who were already confused by her or who were just taking advantage of the situation launched a fierce attack on Shen Luofei again. Yang Chushi, a bad guy like Shen Luofei doesn't deserve your sympathy. How can a crocodile have tears? Looking at Shen Luofei's fierce eyes, it's impossible for him to truly repent. That's right. Hasn't Yang Chushi learned enough from the painful lesson of letting a wolf into their house? I don't even want to be around garbage. The air stinks. Shen Luofei staying here will only make people feel uncomfortable. Tell her to get out. For a moment, the crowd was very excited and demanded that Shen Luofei get out. The instigator, Yang Chushi, gave Shen Luofei a provocative smile and said, Shen Luofei, you were not my opponent 5 years ago, and 5 years later, you are still my defeated opponent. Shen Luofei, who was at the center of public opinion, suppressed the coldness on his face and suddenly turned meaningfully to look at Ji Yanli, who was not far away. He heard every word of the conversation between Shen Luofei and Yang Chushi, as well as the ruthless ridicule of Shen Luofei by the onlookers. Where there are many women, there are conflicts. This is also one of the reasons why Ji Yanli hates coming to banquets the most. He had no interest at first, but he became the protagonist in this war against women. Although he was too disdainful to explain, since it concerned him, he certainly could not stand idly by. However, Shen Luofei has been acting so arrogant since she returned to China. If she wanted to beg him, she should have the right attitude to beg. Obviously, Shen Luofei didn't have that. Since she is so powerful, he wants to see how Shen Luofei responds. Shen Luofei saw that Ji Yanli remained calm and didn't seem to intend to speak. This was naturally the best way, as long as he didn't get involved in protecting Yang Chushi. Shen Luofei turned her gaze from Ji Yanli's face to Yang Chushi. She clapped her hands hard and sneered. Yang Chushi, what you are best at is to portray yourself as a victim and blame others for what you have done. Only your brainless fans will believe your words. Also, you think what you said is flawless, but in fact it is full of loopholes. Yang Chushi and those admirers were all speechless after being hit back. Of course Yang Chushi knew that the lies she made up could be exposed with a careful investigation. Luofei, I want you to turn back. Why do you have to entangle with someone who doesn't belong to you? Yang Chushi was afraid that the bad things would be exposed, so he could only direct the fire to Shen Luofei's emotional entanglement with Ji Yanli. Yang Chushi has given in again and again, but Shen Luofei still wants to seduce Master Ji. Master Ji, please say something. Suddenly, all eyes turned to Ji Yanli, and the scene became silent. Ji Yanli's brows were deeply furrowed, and the creases between his eyebrows could kill a fly. His eyes were a little sharp and his tone was unhappy. I didn't come here today to listen to you quarreling. How can a medical exchange banquet turn into a low-brow quarrel? Besides, you have no right to discuss my Ji family's family affairs. If I hear a word of it again, you will never be able to gain a foothold in Huacheng. After Ji Yanli got angry, those gossipers were so scared that they wanted to sew their mouths shut with needle and thread. And the rich second-generation man who was used as a gun and cannon fodder by Yang Chushi was so scared that he almost wet his pants. Shen Luofei, who saw everything in his heart, looked at Yang Chushi and smiled. Yang Chushi, it seems that there are quite a few rich second generations here who are interested in you. Miss Yang really knows how to cast a wide net. After these words were spoken, those people who had been mindlessly exploited before seemed to have come to their senses. They almost offended Ji Shao in order to help Yang Chushi, which was really not worth it. A trace of panic finally flashed across Yang Chushi's face. She was originally in the limelight, but she was tricked by the bitch Shen Luofei. She quickly looked pitifully at Ji Yanli, who had a gloomy face. Brother Ji, don't listen to Luofei's nonsense. I don't know them at all. I am innocent. You have to believe me. Chapter 15 Baby, warm up the bed. Ji Yanli glared at her fiercely, you talk too much today. Yang Chushi's heart skipped a beat, and she trembled in fear, I'm sorry. When Shen Luofei saw Ji Yanli and Yang Chushi together, he didn't feel much excitement, but was a little confused. She had exposed Yang Chushi's little tricks and her ambiguous relationship with others in public. If Ji Yanli loved her so much, why didn't he protect her? Instead, he heard a hint of blame. Just when the atmosphere was tense, sponsor Yun Feiyang hurried over. As soon as he saw something was wrong, he laughed out loud. I'm sorry, young Master Ji. We didn't make the arrangements. Please come over and have a drink to calm down. Although Yun Feiyang and Ji Yanli did not have a good relationship, for the sake of this banquet and the Ji family's wealth, he did not dare to offend Ji Yanli openly. No. Ji Yanli refused in a deep voice. Yun Feiyang was stunned for a few seconds in embarrassment and his eyes fell on Shen Luofei's face. Shen Luofei nodded at him politely, then spoke loudly to everyone. Boss Yun, everyone was questioning my identity just now and wanted to kick me out. After hearing this, Yun Feiyang's face changed and he immediately seriously proved for Shen Luofei. Miss Shen is our important guest. She has an invitation letter, and Miss Shen is. When Yun Feiyang was about to announce that Shen Luofei was the famous Amelia, Shen Luofei stopped him. Her purpose was to slap Yang Chushi in the face, not to show off. Boss Yun, thank you for helping me prove it. I don't like to get involved in gossip. I just want to study hard and cooperate deeply with the Yun group. What do you think, Boss Yun? Shen Luofei gave him enough face. He was just testing Shen Luofei just now. Now he knew that Shen Luofei would never change jobs. The Yun group was eager to recruit outstanding talents like her. Of course, it would be a great honor for Miss Shen to cooperate with our Yun group. I welcome it very much. Ji Yanli felt that he was left aside by Shen Luofei. Shen Luofei and Yun Feiyang were chatting and laughing in a familiar manner. He clenched his hands, which were hanging on both sides of his trouser legs, into fists, and his chest suddenly felt very stuffy. Yun Feiyang invited Shen Luofei to discuss in detail, and Shen Luofei happily went without even looking at Ji Yanli. Ji Yanli might not understand why he cared so much about Shen Luofei being close to another man, but Yang Chushi, who was being ignored next to him, saw it clearly in his heart and showed it on his face. She bit her lower lip, suppressing the jealousy in her heart, and provoked him in a sarcastic way. Brother Ji, Sister Luofei is still as charming as before. Although Mr. Yun is a little older, he is still single. It seems that he may invite us to his wedding soon. Hearing this, Ji Yanli's face became even more embarrassed, and huge waves were surging in his chest. He snorted coldly and ran away. Yang Chushi chased after him unwillingly. Ms. Shen, just now you seem to not want me to tell everyone that you are Amelia. You should know that there are many people here who are your fans. In the conference room, Yun Feiyang asked in confusion. Shen Luofei lightly curled her beautiful red lips. Boss Yun, Amelia is just a code name for me. I don't like to seek fame. I have an unwelcome request, which is that I hope you can keep it a secret for me. Yun Feiyang was stunned at first, then he smiled and nodded. Miss Shen, you are really low-key. I promise you. Then, the two began to discuss the issue of cooperation. Ms. Shen, you know that I hope you can come to our Yun's pharmaceutical. As long as you are willing, I will give you the highest salary and dividends, as well as the highest position, and let them all obey your orders. Even though he knew it was impossible, Yun Feiyang still wanted to try again. Boss Yun, you should know that I didn't choose you just for money. Yun's Pharmaceuticals has the most complete range of medicinal materials in the world, and their pharmaceutical equipment is also the most advanced. Of course I understand this. Excuse me, Miss Shen, have you joined another company? Yun Feiyang was curious. Shen Luofei just smiled and said nothing, which was considered as his agreement. What kind of company can attract top talents like Miss Shen? Yun Feiyang asked unwillingly. My own company. No wonder. Shen Luofei can provide medical technology and help Yun's pharmaceutical develop new drugs. Yun's pharmaceutical needs to unconditionally provide them with the necessary medicinal materials and research and development funds. Yun Feiyang agrees. The two had a pleasant discussion. After finishing the talk, Shen Luofei looked at the time. It was getting late. She had promised Ruren that she would go back early today. There was a roast chicken restaurant a few kilometers away from their hotel, which had Ruren's favorite roast chicken. Ms. Shen, where do you live? Can I take you there? Yun Feiyang saw Shen Luofei waiting for a car outside alone. No, thank you. Ms. Shen, it's hard to get a taxi in this place at this time. That's right, Shen Luofei had no choice but to thank Yun Feiyang and then got into his car. Ji Yanli was in a bad mood. When he looked up, he saw Shen Luofei driving past him quickly in Yun Feiyang's car. He immediately tightened his grip on the steering wheel, his eyes instantly freezing into ice. Har har, this woman is really never idle. In just a short while, she was already flirting with Yun Feiyang. It was already late at night, and the couple were alone, burning with desire. The old lecher Yun Feiyang couldn't wait to get a room with Shen Luofei. Shen Luofei had divorced him, so it was none of his business who this woman was with. However, he got angry when he thought about her abandoning the sick Yushi for her own pleasure. He couldn't bear to watch her go on like that. This nameless anger rushed into his heart. He stepped on the accelerator hard, and the luxury car quickly sped onto the road. There was a puddle on the road. Yang Chushi searched for a long time before she found Ji Yanli's car. She ran over happily with her skirt lifted up, but was splashed with dirty water by Ji Yanli's car. She could only watch Ji Yanli leave her and stand on the side of the road, cold and miserable, wanting to cry but unable to cry. "Mr. Yun, please stop by the roadside," Shen Luofei said. "Good." After getting off the car, Shen Luofei said goodbye to Yun Feiyang, then went to the roast chicken shop and bought a big roast chicken, and finally sent a video to Yushi. Baby Yushi saw the delicious roast chicken in the video and it looked delicious. He said in a baby voice, "Wow, thank you, mommy. When will you be home? I have already warmed the bed for you." After hearing the voice message from his beloved son, any unpleasantness Shen Luofei had experienced at the banquet disappeared into thin air. Baby is so sensible. I will be home soon. Honey, with you warming the bed, I will no longer be afraid of the cold. Ji Yanli couldn't help but follow Yun Feiyang's car. He saw Shen Luofei getting out of the car and coming out of the roast chicken shop. All he could hear was her calling him baby in a doting and coquettish manner, and praising him for warming the bed for her. Ji Yanli's fists were clenched so hard that they made a clattering sound. His face was cold and he looked at Shen Luofei as if he wanted to skin her alive. Shen Luofei couldn't help but shiver all over. She looked up suddenly and inadvertently met Ji Yanli's sharp eyes that were as deep as a cold pool. Her breathing stagnated and she couldn't help but become nervous. Shouldn't Ji Yanli be with Yang Chushi at this time? Why did he appear in front of her alone? Could it be that he felt sorry for her when he saw her openly slapping Yang Chushi in the face, so he came here specifically to teach her a lesson for Yang Chushi? Chapter 16, The President of G Group has bad breath. In that case, why should she be afraid of him? She had avoided Ji Yanli before because she was afraid that Ruiba would be discovered and snatched away by him. Now, it seemed that he had openly brought Yang Chushi out to show their affection. What's more, they already have children, so they probably won't care about their own children. Without a weak spot, Shen Luofei straightened his back and stopped avoiding. Instead, he glanced at Ji Yanli coldly, as if he was looking at a stranger. Seeing Shen Luofei's sudden cold expression towards him, he felt even more uncomfortable. This woman was flirting with that old man Yun Feiyang just a second ago, but her expression changed when she came to him. Is he not as good as an old man she just met in her heart? This realization made the proud Ji Yanli very unhappy. Shen Luofei waited for a few seconds and found that Ji Yanli was like a wall completely blocking her way, with no sign of moving aside, so she spoke unhappily. "Please move aside, you are blocking my way." Hearing this, Ji Yanli Bingper's handsome face darkened to the bottom of the valley. The voice that came out of his mouth was devoid of any warmth and could freeze people into ice directly. "Ms. Shen is really fickle. She threw herself at me a few days ago, but now she's hooking up with a new lover and pretending not to know me. It's hard to describe how Miss Shen looks at men. She can even cut through the bark of such an old tree." Even though Shen Luofei controlled his temper, he couldn't help but get angry after hearing Ji Yanli's sarcastic slander. "Ji Yanli, you didn't brush your teeth this morning, your mouth stinks," Shen Luofei retorted angrily. Since this guy was asking for trouble, she would not tolerate him. There were people coming and going on the street. Both of them were good-looking, and judging from their temperament and dress, they were both upper-class people. Shen Luofei spoke so loudly that many people were looking towards Ji Yanli. They looked at each other strangely and shook their heads in disbelief. "That handsome guy looks so rich and handsome, but I didn't expect he has bad breath. What a pity. His girlfriend broke up with him because of his bad breath. Poor handsome guy. Season banquet." He was petrified on the spot. After a second, he gritted his teeth and angrily said, "I don't have bad breath." Passers-by showed sympathy and said, "Handsome man, bad breath is a disease. Go to the hospital and check it out. Don't delay your beautiful marriage." Shen Luofei didn't expect that her swear words would be misinterpreted like this by passers-by. Seeing Ji Yanli's furious look, she felt inexplicably happy. Maybe tomorrow's front page headline will be a shocking revelation, the president of G Group has bad breath. Ji Yanli's fiery gaze couldn't help but fall on Shen Luofei's pretty face, which showed no sign of concealing her mockery, and he scolded angrily. Shen Luofei, this is all your fault. Shen Luofei shrugged fearlessly and brushed her long hair innocently. Ji Yanli, I have done something good, please don't slander me. Seeing her gloating and arrogant attitude, Ji Yanli suddenly pulled her into his arms and grabbed her chin with one hand. His movements were extremely rough, and there was a hint of cruelty in his eyes. Shen Luofei felt like her jaw was about to dislocate, and her little face turned red from anger. Ji Yanli, let me go, what are you going to do? If you can't convince her, you're going to use force. Ji Yanli approached her like a demon. Didn't you spread rumors that I have bad breath? I want you to try it yourself right now to see if I really have bad breath. Shen Luofei couldn't help but be stunned. Is Ji Yanli crazy? This is the street. However, when Shen Luofei tried to break free from him, he grabbed the back of her head and sealed her lips tightly with his thin lips. A feeling of coldness and humiliation spread from her heart to her brain. They are divorced. Why would he bother her again? Shen Luofei will never forget her wedding night. He ignored her and refused to even kiss her, as if she were a monster. During the 2 years of marriage, he was cold and indifferent to her. Even when he was at home, he treated her as air, and his noble hands and lips refused to touch her. A man who disliked her so much was trying to kiss her forcefully just to vent his anger. She was no longer the stupid woman who loved him deeply and could be summoned and dismissed at will. Shen Luofei was so angry that she tried to break free from him, but the man's arms held her tightly, and the two of them fit together without any gap, and there was even an ambiguous sound from the friction between their clothes. Did this bastard Ji Yanli think that she was a cheap doll that could be bullied at will? Shen Luofei's resistance was very intense, but in the eyes of passers-by, the couple just quarreled at the head of the bed and made up at the foot of the bed. Assistant Martin Fei saw that his boss had not gotten into the car yet and wondered if he had lost his way. Martin Fei hurriedly got out of the car to look for her, but he saw that his boss, who was not interested in women, was hugging a beautiful woman and kissing her in public. Wow, the iron tree finally blooms. When President Xi flirts with women, it's okay if he doesn't make a move, but once he does, it's a stunning success. Oh, it would be better if he, a light bulb, didn't show up here and disturb other people's love. But why did he see the beautiful woman punching Mr. G's chest with her little fist very reluctantly? It is said that one cannot eat hot tofu in a hurry, and Mr. G was too impatient. Wait, that's not right. Why does this beauty look so much like Mr. G's ex-wife? Mr. G should not like Shen Luofei. Could it be that he has changed his mind now and plans to reconcile with his ex-wife? Well, compared to that hypocritical green tea girl Yang Chushi, Shen Luofei is more suitable to be the CEO of our company. Shen Luofei clenched his teeth and closed his mouth tightly. Ji Yanli felt countless small fists hitting him fiercely. This woman's sense of resistance was particularly strong, as if he was stinking garbage. Shen Luofei, don't be ungrateful. Ji Yanli couldn't help but get angry and burst out his suppressed dissatisfaction. It would have been better if Ji Yanli didn't say anything, but once he opened his mouth, Shen Luofei became even more angry. Shen Luofei opened her mouth without any hesitation and bit his lips hard with her snow-white teeth. Ji Yanli only felt pain on his lips, and then the smell of blood spread to his entire mouth. This woman hated him to the core, and she bit him so hard that she almost bit off a piece of flesh from his lip. Ji Yanli frowned and angrily pushed her away. Shen Luofei, who was breathing air again, was gasping for breath. Her whole body was shaking with anger and her heart was about to beat out of her chest. She stared at Ji Yanli with a defensive look. If he dared to violate her again, next time she would not bite his lips but kick him so hard that he would have no offspring. Ji Yanli wiped the blood from his mouth with his hand in annoyance. His face was darker than charcoal and his handsome face was full of gloom. He sneered. Shen Luofei, you are too cruel. Shen Luofei wiped her red lips and sneered, I still think I was too gentle. Ji Yanli, you saw it all. If you dare to disrespect me again next time, I will bite you to death. Chapter 17 Who Bit Daddy's Mouth? In Ji Yanli's impression, Shen Luofei's heart and eyes are full of him. She obeys his every word and is a typical love-brained person. Now Shen Luofei is like a hedgehog covered with thorns. Whoever dares to offend her will be hurt by her sharp thorns. Moreover, Shen Luofei's fighting power is amazing, beyond imagination. Ji Yanli was completely stunned by the aura she exuded. When he came to his senses, he found that Shen Luofei was gone. After witnessing the fierce kissing contest between the president and his ex-wife, Martin Fei wanted to find a hole to crawl into, because he could foresee that the president would get furious and he would inevitably be affected. Martin Fei hurried over to drive away the onlookers, then sneaked up to Yanli, who was emitting a very angry look. He nodded and bowed, with a flattering smile on his face. "Boss, it's cold, the car is warm, get in." Yanli's face was so gloomy that water seemed to drip out of it. He angrily shook his suit that was wrinkled during the dispute with Shen Luofei. "Roll. Martin Fei. This is a main road, it's not easy for him to roll away. If today's news is on the internet tomorrow, you'll be out of here immediately." Before getting on the car, Yanli gave orders to Martin Fei. "Yes, President, I will definitely do it." The next second, the car sped away from his sight without mercy. Martin Fei wanted to cry but had no tears. He was thrown to the side of the road by the president again. He might as well get back to work. Shen Luofei sat in the car with the window open, letting the cold wind outside blow on her hot cheeks. The image of Yanli kissing her still appeared in her mind. That bastard Yanli has such a dirty heart that he actually thinks there is something going on between her and Yunfei Yang. As long as this guy appears, he will definitely disturb her peaceful mood. She decided that she would burn incense every time she went out, asking the Buddha to bless her to stay away from Yanli. She never wanted to see the annoying him again. "Miss, we have arrived at the villa area." At this time, the driver's voice came. Shen Luofei looked out the window, scanned the code, paid, said thank you, and got out of the car. She warned herself that no matter what troubles she encountered in her relationship or work, she must be happy when she returned home to face Ruren, and must never let the child feel her bad mood. For this reason, Shen Luofei took out a small makeup mirror and wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, but her lip was actually broken. She pressed the combination lock and walked into the living room, calling out in a gentle voice, "Ruibao. Mommy, you're back." Yushi quickly walked to the door and gently hugged Shen Luofei. When Shen Luofei heard her son's gurgling voice, her heart melted instantly and her mood suddenly became bright. She rubbed Yushi's fluffy little head with her hand and said affectionately, "Did Ruren do his homework well when he was alone at home? Ruren is the most naughty little guy. When she is not around, he will secretly eat snacks." Baby Yushi smiled obediently and pointed to the neatly stacked homework books on the desk. "Mommy, I finished my homework." Although Ruren is very smart, he doesn't like doing homework. The first time Shen Luofei saw Ruren finish his homework so quickly, she was immediately surprised. "Then mommy has to check it out." Yushi blinked her long eyelashes and nodded. Shen Luofei walked over, opened the homework book, and saw the neat and delicate handwriting. She frowned, then continued reading. "I found that Ruren answered all the questions correctly, and his solution ideas were very clear, not inferior to those top students in universities. Ruren, why did your handwriting suddenly become so neat? And when did you learn it without telling mommy?" Shen Luofei's face looked slightly confused and serious. Yushi's heart skipped a beat. Oh no, mommy made him laugh. Today he knew that his mommy had gone to a party and probably wouldn't have time to check his homework, so he started doing exercises to pass the time. He was trying his best to imitate Ruren's handwriting, but there was indeed a big difference between his handwriting and Ruren's, and it was discovered without paying attention. Yushi racked his brains to think of a countermeasure and tried his best to appear calm. "Mommy, I've been practicing calligraphy and reading books lately. This explanation seems reasonable. Ruibao is really amazing. You should keep up the good work in the future. Don't just be a flash in the pan." Yushi breathed a sigh of relief when he saw his mommy smile, and guessed that he should have gotten away with it. In order to avoid being exposed in the future, he had to contact Ruibao more often. "Mommy, is this the roast chicken you bought for me? It smells so good, can I eat it?" Yushi quickly changed the topic to eating and swallowed. He knew Ruren was a foodie. Although he was not that keen on food, he believed that whatever Ruren recommended would definitely be delicious. "Oh, I almost forgot. Wait a minute, mommy will heat it up in the microwave before you eat it." Shen Luofei cut the hot chicken into small pieces and brought it to Yushi. Yushi looked at the delicious chicken nuggets with his big eyes shining. "Eat it, baby." "Well, mommy, you eat too." Yushi chewed the delicious chicken politely, but found that his mother was looking at him strangely again. He suddenly became nervous. Could it be that he had revealed some flaw again? Ruoren usually eats his favorite food with hearty mouthfuls. Even if he was frightened by Yanli that day, the after-effects wouldn't last so long. She was thinking about whether she should find a psychologist to help Ruoren deal with the problem. In the Ji family mansion, Yanli returned home with a gloomy face and went straight to the children's room. Ruobao was almost depressed after not going out for a whole day. When he saw his thin-waisted and long-legged daddy walking in with a depressed look, his eyes were fixed on his injured mouth. Daddy is going to a party tonight, why did he get a bruise on his mouth? He knew that the vixen would also go to the dinner, and mommy would be even more likely to go, so was the wound on daddy's mouth bitten by mommy or by the vixen? If it was mommy who bit her, does that mean daddy bullied her again or that he still has feelings for her? If it was a bite by a vixen, Ruoren would never forgive the scumbag daddy who said one thing and did another. After the two, big and small, looked at each other in tacit understanding for a second, Ruoren spoke first. Daddy, who bit your mouth? Yanli subconsciously touched his injured mouth. Is it so obvious? Even the brat could see it at a glance. Hearing this, Yanli denied it with a stern face. No one bit me. I bit it accidentally. Daddy is lying to a 3-year-old kid. No one would believe this reason. Ruoren rolled his eyes speechlessly. Daddy, do you think I'm a fool? How could I bite such a big wound? Oh, Daddy, could it be that you flirted with a beautiful woman and got retaliated against? Ruoren deliberately covered his mouth and looked at Yanli with horror in his big eyes. Yanli's voice became colder again. Children's minds are full of chaos. Go to bed early. Yanli wanted to avoid this depressing topic. Oh, then Daddy should also go to bed early. After Yanli left, Ruoren immediately called Yushi. Yushi, I discovered a huge secret. Daddy's mouth was bitten by a woman. Do you know who it was? Baby Yushi had just escaped from his mother's clutches and was hiding in bed sending a message to Ruoren. I don't know, but I just noticed that the corner of Mommy's mouth seemed to be a little broken. Do you think it could be Mommy? Chapter 18 Daddy is a bad guy. Yushi's idea coincides with Ruoren's. I think so. Daddy looked very unhappy when he came home. I asked him about it, but he still refused to admit it. Yushi's blood suddenly boiled. Ruoren, this means there is hope for Daddy and Mommy to get back together. Compared to Yushi's optimism, Ruoren is still skeptical. He feels that the two are not getting back together, but rather are having a quarrel. As for what exactly happened at the party, he needs further investigation. Yushi, Ruoren, after all, Daddy and Mommy have misunderstood each other for so many years, it is impossible to reconcile immediately. We need to be patient. Daddy is not that bad actually. You should spend more time with him. Since Yushi encouraged him so much, Ruoren said he would give his dad another chance. Yushi gets along very well with his mommy, and he is also very grateful to Ruoren for giving in. When the two little guys were chatting animatedly, the bedroom door was suddenly pushed open. Yushi, why haven't you gone to bed yet? Are you hiding under the covers playing with your phone? Yushi was so scared that he quickly turned off the bracelet, then he poked his little head out and spoke nervously. Mommy, I'm not looking at my phone. I'm going to sleep right away. Shen Luofei then put away her serious expression, walked to the bed, hugged Yushi's soft little face and kissed her. Good night, baby. In the Ji family, although Daddy is very good to me, he never gives me gentle kisses like Mommy does. Yushi feels so happy and likes this feeling very much. His big eyes twinkled and his little face flushed. Then he mustered up the courage to kiss Shen Luofei gently on the cheek. Mommy, good night. Then Yushi quickly covered her red face with the quilt. The next day, Ruoren had just got dressed and went downstairs for breakfast when he heard his grandmother's loud and noisy voice. He hates it when his grandma comes over, because it always means something bad. Yanli had just sat down at the dining table when his mother Xie Jinglei came in uninvited. Mom, why are you here so early in the morning? I have to go to work. Yanli's voice clearly revealed impatience. If I hadn't come early in the morning, I wouldn't have been able to see you at all. Son, you must help Chushi this time. Ruoren upstairs couldn't help but roll his eyes. It was indeed all for that vixen again. I've helped her enough. Even if it was just to repay her for saving his life, it would be more than enough for him. He hated people who took advantage of his situation the most. Son, just think of it as your mother's sake. You must know Amelia? Chusha's uncle has cancer. Amelia is an expert in treating cancer. No matter how much it costs, we are willing to pay. Our vixen uncle, doesn't he that mean he is mommy's scumbag father? He deserves his retribution. The stupid grandma and the vixen definitely don't know that Amelia is mommy. They are dreaming when they want daddy to persuade mommy to cure the murderer who killed great-grandfather and grandma. Yanli's brows furrowed even more tightly. You can tell young Chushi to give up that idea. Amelia will never save her uncle. Daddy actually had the same idea as himself. Ruoran finally had a slightly better impression of Daddy. Why? No reason, Yushi, school is about to start, why don't you come down and have breakfast? Yanli turned around and looked seriously at Ruoran, who was eavesdropping upstairs. Ruoran stuck out his tongue and then ran downstairs. Banquet, I don't believe that I can't invite Amelia even if I spend a huge amount of money. Xie Jinglei said angrily. You can't hire Amelia even if you pay 10 billion. I advise you not to waste your time on irrelevant people. Ruoran took a bite of his sandwich and gave a serious and kind reminder. Xie Jinglei looked at Ruoran's little face with a little anger. Yushi baby, why are you and your dad the same? Aunt Chushi is not an outsider. She will be your mother in the future. Hearing this, Ruoran's face sank, his mouth pouted, and he retorted angrily. Yang Chushi is not qualified to be my mommy. I only have one mommy, and that is the one who gave birth to me. After being scolded by her grandson, Xie Jinglei was embarrassed. She looked at Yanli with dissatisfaction and said sternly. Yushi has really been spoiled by you to the point of being lawless, and you still don't care about it, and that irresponsible woman is already dead. The bad grandma actually cursed mommy. Ruibao couldn't stand it. He jumped off the bench and yelled at Xie Jinglei. My mom is not dead, it's the vixen who is to blame, and you, the indiscriminate bad grandma, are so annoying. I don't want to see you again. Yushi, you actually scolded your grandmother again. Xie Jinglei was so angry that she couldn't breathe and fell directly on the sofa. No way, this bad grandma was in high spirits when she was scolding mommy, how come she fainted after just one sentence? Someone, take mom to the hospital. Immediately afterwards, the servant sent the unconscious Xie Jinglei to the hospital. Yanli glared at Ruoran angrily. No matter how bad she is still your grandmother. How can you talk to her like that? Ruoran got angry and snorted coldly. She was the one who cursed mommy first, and she's in such good health, how could you not see such a simple scam? How could Yushi become so unreasonable? Yushi, if I don't teach you a lesson today, you might not even take me, your dad, seriously when you grow up. Jian was so polite that he pretended to step forward and catch the naughty Ruiran. Ruoran reacted quickly and dodged backwards with his little body, shouting loudly with a crying voice while dodging. Daddy is going to beat me up, woo-woo, Daddy is a bad guy, everyone in this family is a bad guy, I want to go find mommy. Do you dare to run out and try? When he thought about how Shen Luofei ignored and bit him yesterday, and how the son he had raised with great effort went against him and went to find the woman who had never given him any maternal love, he became furious. Ruoran ran around vigilantly. Just now he thought that Daddy had made progress, but now Daddy wanted to teach him a lesson. He always made mistakes in the past, but mommy never had the heart to hit him. Yushi said that his daddy was a good person, but what a good person he was. He was a scumbag and a domestic violence man. He saw through the true nature of his scumbag daddy and rushed to the door without hesitation. Yanli felt that the battle of wits and courage with this little guy was more tiring than going to work. Ruoran was just a little kid after all, and there was no way he could outrun his long-legged daddy. He was about to be caught by the bad guys. At this time, a handsome man wearing a white coat, with a slender figure and a pair of gold-rimmed glasses walked in and hugged Ruoran. Who are you? Let me go. Ruoran struggled violently. Don't be afraid, young master. I'm here to save you. The man's gentle voice seemed to have a soothing power, instantly calming the restless Ruoran. Suibai, why are you here? Yanli stopped and looked at Suibai in confusion. It was the housekeeper who called me. I happened to be on a medical visit nearby. Xiao Yushi, do you still remember Uncle Su? Ruoran looked at Suibai with a very unfamiliar look. He was now playing the role of Yushi. Wouldn't Yushi be suspicious if he didn't know him? Chapter 19 suspected that the fire was man-made. Daddy's circle of friends is too complicated, so he must find time to communicate with Yushi properly, and it would be best if he could tell everyone around Daddy that he knows. Ruoran tried his best to stay calm. He called out politely in a baby voice, "Uncle Su." "Yushi, be good, did you have a fight with Daddy just now?" Suibai had already guessed something from the tense expressions between the father and son. Hearing this, Ruoran hung his head and kept silent, using silence to tell him the answer. Suibai touched Ruoran's head and said gently, "Yushi, I'm going to chat with your dad first. I'll go to your room and see you later. Uncle brought you a lot of your favorite books, toys and delicacies this time." When Ruoran heard about the food and toys, he felt much better. "Thank you, Uncle Su." He slid down from Suibai's arms, and when he passed by Yanli, he stuck out his tongue at his daddy and said, "Lululu," which made Yanli so angry that he seemed to explode on the spot. Suibai also saw the little guy's naughty scene, which was completely different from the shy Yushi before. After the little guy went upstairs and entered the room, Suibai quickly walked to Yanli's side and spoke seriously in a voice that only the two of them could hear. "I estimate that Yushi's condition has indeed become more complicated. I remember that Yushi's personality changed after a fire. When the disease broke out, he would cry for his mother and even convulse uncontrollably. He would be very scared when he saw a fire. This is also a sequelae of trauma." Later, Suibai gave him desensitization therapy, and Yushi gradually became less frightened of the fire, and could even watch the fire from a distance with a calm heart. Yanli nodded in agreement. "Yushi's temper is getting worse and worse. During this period, I even felt that the Yushi in front of me was not like Yushi. Alas, I underestimated the incubation period of the disease. Yushi is at a stage where he is very curious about everything at this age. He must receive correct treatment and guidance. Most importantly, he must not be stimulated again. Didn't I remind you that any request he makes must be met, otherwise it will develop into a personality disorder or schizophrenia, which will be difficult to treat?" Yanli's face darkened slightly. "I will control my temper in the future." Because in his eyes, Yushi has always been calm and well behaved. Even if he is dissatisfied, he will not challenge him openly like he did today. He is not able to fully adapt to Yushi's different personality. Suibai patted his shoulder comfortingly. "Don't worry, I will continue to study the latest treatment methods for children's personality disorders abroad, but now all you have to do is to coax Yushi." Yanli was stunned. The thing he was worst at was coaxing people. Only if he truly accepts you and likes you, can his condition slowly improve. Yanli of course understood Suibai's intention, and he raised his thin lips. "Then how can I make Yushi like me?" "Well, it won't happen in a hurry. Every time Yushi gets sick, he goes to find his mommy. In his mind, mommy is the person he trusts the most. So every time he mentions mommy, you should not always contradict the child. This will only make Yushi more resistant to you." Yanli's face was cold and his thin lips were tightly pursed. For Yushi's sake, should he let that hateful woman go? "How about this, why don't you take Yushi to the amusement park to play and strengthen the father-son relationship?" Suibai was right. If he wanted to win back Yushi's heart, he had to be extra nice to him and defeat Shen Luofei's position in his son's heart. Ruoran returned to the room and contacted Yushi using the bracelet. "Yushi, a man named Suibai came to our house just now. Please tell me his information. Uncle Suibai is my psychiatrist. 3 years ago, my dad was on a business trip and the villa suddenly caught fire. I was locked in the room and couldn't get out. Later, I got this disease." Ruoran was shocked when he saw the message sent by Yushi. He always thought that Yushi was sick because he missed his mother, but he didn't expect that he was almost burned to death. He hurriedly asked about the cause of the fire. Yushi said that a servant was secretly smoking in the lounge, and the unburned cigarette but accidentally burned the curtains, which caused the fire. The servant also died in the fire. For this reason, Dad later strictly forbade servants to smoke. Ruoran suspected that the fire was caused by arson, but the servant was already dead and there was no evidence. Ruoran felt more and more distressed for Yushi. Although Yushi was the young master of the high and mighty Ji family, his life was much harder than his. Originally, he wanted to exchange it back with Yushi out of spite, but after hearing about Yushi's story, he gave up the idea and decided to stay in Ji's house to fight wits and courage with his daddy and the evil grandma Vixen. Luo Yu as a group, Shen Luofei entered the president's office wearing a white professional suit. Shisha, how's their contact with the kindergarten going? Since she decided to stay here for the time being, she had to help Ruren find a school. Boss Shen, these are the 3 best kindergartens in Huacheng that I have selected. Winter International ranks first. Shen Luofei looked down at the information. Winter International is a top-notch bilingual kindergarten fully funded by the G Group, and Ji Yanli's son is also in this kindergarten. During the Winter International exclusion period, choose Luochen Kindergarten. Luochen Kindergarten is the second most high-end kindergarten in Huacheng after Winter International. Shen Luofei doesn't want Ruibao to meet Ji Yanli and Yang Chusha's children, and she doesn't want Ruibao to meet Ji Yanli even more. Okay, President, I'll do it right away. By the way, Ji's group sent me a cooperation invitation letter not long ago, but I never responded. Today, they called me again to urge me. Just refuse. Shen Luofei didn't think about it at all. But the cooperation conditions offered by Ji's group are the best. Are you really not going to consider it again? Tang Shisha asked again. Shen Luofei raised his head and said, Tang Shisha, if you hadn't been with me for so many years, I would have thought that the G group had given you some benefit to help them speak so well. Even if the conditions they offered were good, I would never agree to them. I'm sorry, President, I talked too much. Go get busy. After Tang Shisha left, the office phone on Shen Luofei's desk rang. The secretary said anxiously, Boss Shen, a distinguished guest just asked to discuss business with Boss Xiao Yuyu. What should we do? Except Tang Shisha, Xu Enyu and Xu Muzher who knew that she was Xiao Yuyu, no one else in the company knew. Just say Mr. Qiao isn't here. But the visitor has come to our door, right in the reception room. Got it. I'll take care of it. Shen Luofei tidied up her hair and the wrinkles on her clothes, then went straight to the living room in her high heels. When she saw the handsome and indifferent face sitting in the office chair with a dignified posture and turning around to look at her, she couldn't believe it. Why was it Ji Yanli? The person she least wanted to see had to appear in front of her. How unlucky. Ji Yanli also narrowed his eyes and looked at Shen Luofei with the same shocked look. Chapter 20 Threatening Shen Luofei. Why are you here? Ji Yanli looked at Shen Luofei, who was dressed in a professional and capable women's outfit and looked mature and charming, and he couldn't help but feel angry, and his voice was particularly cold. Why can't I be here? No matter what Ji Yanli's attitude was, Shen Luofei didn't give him a good look. Ji Yanli looked at her unhappily and sneered. Shen Luofei, I see you everywhere I go. This is too much of a coincidence. Faced with his sarcastic questioning, Shen Luofei asked back dissatisfiedly. What do you mean? Do you think I'm waiting for you here on purpose? Ji Yanli looked smug as if he had seen through her thoughts, isn't it? Once is a coincidence, every time is not a coincidence, but deliberate. Shen Luofei. Shen Luofei almost couldn't control herself and burst into tears. This man was too narcissistic. She sneered, Boss Ji, narcissism is also a disease. I still suspect that you have installed surveillance on me. Compared to the past, this woman is much more sharp-tongued and aggressive. Don't be so conceited. I wouldn't do that. Ji Yanli retorted arrogantly. Shen Luofei was used to hearing such ruthless words, so she naturally wouldn't be angry with him anymore. She got to the point, her cold eyes falling on Ji Yanli's handsome face that was as calm as water. Boss Ji, what is your purpose in coming to our company? Of course I came here to discuss business with your company's president, Xiao Yuyu. Ji Yanli came to find Xiao Yuyu. Shen Luofei was startled and then refused. Sorry, our CEO Xiao is out of the country. Ji Yanli frowned slightly, looked gloomy, and asked unhappily. Why did your CEO Xiao go abroad when I arrived? Since CEO Xiao is not here, where are the other leaders of your company? Shen Luofei was furious. Ji Yanli was planning to stay here and not leave. He had to meet one of the company's leaders. Boss Ji, our CEO Xiao is very busy, so you need to make an appointment in advance to see her. As for the other leaders of our company, they are not in the company, so please go back. Ji Yanli saw that Shen Luofei had an arrogant attitude, and his words were full of intentions to drive him away, and he was extremely disgusted with him. He couldn't help but get angry and asked in a very hostile tone. You are not the boss of the company, what right do you have to speak on their behalf? Shen Luofei answered calmly. Although I am not the boss of the company, the boss has given me full authority to be in charge of the company's business when he is away. I have the right to reject any inappropriate cooperation company. Shen Luofei's attitude was very tough. The next second, Yanli stood up from his chair, smoothed the wrinkles on his suit in a noble manner, and said confidently, "You haven't even read the cooperation plan of our G's group, so why do you think it's inappropriate? I don't need to brag about how powerful the G's group is. The data has proven everything. I dare say that in the entire Flower City, no company will offer more favorable conditions than the G's group. If it weren't for Xiao Yuyu, Yanli would never have condescended to ask for cooperation." Shen Luofei certainly knew that the Ji family was wealthy and powerful, and Luo Yuezher had just started out in Huacheng. If he had a big capital like the Ji group as a backer, he would indeed be able to develop faster and better. But at the same time, Shen Luofei also knew that Ji Yanli was not a philanthropist, and there must be a prerequisite for him to offer such generous conditions. Shen Luofei read the plan that Ji Yanli handed over and returned it to him. "I'm sorry, even if your conditions are very good, I still refuse." Hearing this, Ji Yanli's face darkened. "Why? If you think the plan is not good, I can ask my assistant to revise it until you are satisfied. It has nothing to do with the plan. So you're just taking revenge on me out of personal vengeance." Apart from this reason, Ji Yanli couldn't think of any reason why Shen Luofei repeatedly rejected him. Shen Luofei's heart sank, but he immediately composed himself and smiled generously. "I have long forgotten that unbearable past. Mr. Ji, you are being too sentimental. You..." The atmosphere suddenly dropped to the bottom. Shen Luofei was about to turn around. She found that when she was with Ji Yanli, she would still be irritated by him even if she tried hard to control her emotions. "Shen Luofei, you don't want to reveal that you are Amelia, right?" Ji Yanli's clear voice came from behind. Shen Luofei's shoulders trembled, and the expression on her face almost couldn't be suppressed. She turned around and frowned. "You threaten me." This trick really worked, and Ji Yanli denied it. "It's not a threat, but I'm impressed by your medical skills and want to ask you to do me a favor." It was because of this that he gave up the idea of driving her out of Huacheng. Shen Luofei finally understood why Ji Yanli condescended to ask for cooperation. His purpose was to treat the uncle of his beloved woman. There was a hint of coldness in Shen Luofei's eyes, and the corners of his mouth curled up in a slightly sarcastic arc. "If you want to help Yang Chusha's uncle treat cancer, I'm sorry I can't do it." Ji Yanli was stunned. When did he ever say that he wanted to treat Yang Chusha's uncle's illness? This woman always liked to misinterpret his meaning. Ji Yanli's face was so gloomy that water could drip out of it. A fire was surging in his chest. He turned away angrily. He was afraid that if he didn't leave, he would lose control and want to strangle this self-righteous woman. After Ji Yanli left, Shen Luofei's stiff body suddenly softened. Har, she was right, that's why Ji Yanli was so angry. I've already said I don't care, so why should I be affected by his emotions and become unhappy? Shen Luofei cheered himself up and returned to the office. After being busy for the whole afternoon, he finally put Ji Yanli out of his mind. Shen Luofei was worried about Ruoren and wanted to go back early to cook for him, so she drove a little faster. At the corner, a staggering old lady suddenly rushed towards her car. Shen Luofei was frightened and immediately braked. After the car stopped, she got out in shock and saw a white-haired old lady lying beside the car with difficulty breathing. She quickly squatted down and asked nervously, "Grandma, how are you?" Save me." The old lady seemed to be unable to breathe. Shen Luofei quickly took the old lady's pulse. The old lady had asthma. "Grandma, do you have any medicine?" The old lady was about to die, and Shen Luofei frantically searched her pockets, but found them empty. Shen Luofei is a doctor, so she carries some first aid medicines with her. She took out a pill and gave it to the old lady. After a while, she asked, "Grandma, are you feeling better?" The old lady wasn't breathing as hard as before, but her eyes were closed and she was still unable to speak. In this situation, the old lady must be sent to the hospital immediately. However, Shen Luofei couldn't carry the old lady by herself, so she asked for help from the onlookers. "Uncles and aunts, this old lady has an asthma attack and needs to be taken to the hospital urgently. Can you help me carry her to my car? Please." These people were very indifferent to Shen Luofei's request for help. "Girl, there are a lot of elderly people who commit fraud nowadays. If we help, The old lady's family will frame us and accuse us of hurting the old lady. Wouldn't that be more harm than good? After one of them refused, the others also walked away. Shen Luofei had no choice but to grit his teeth and carry the old lady to the car, then drove her to the nearest hospital himself. Master, something happened to the old lady. Chapter 21. Grandma's elbows are bent outward. After leaving Shen Luofei on bad terms, Yanli suddenly received a call from Martin Fei. His voice unconsciously revealed nervousness. What happened to Grandma? Today, Grandma insisted on going for a walk in the nearby park. She dismissed her bodyguards and only brought the nanny with her. Halfway through, Grandma suddenly had an asthma attack and the nanny went back to get medicine. When the nanny arrived, Grandma was gone. The nanny called him but he didn't answer, so she called Martin Fei. Yanli's phone was set to silent mode. When he picked it up, he saw that there were indeed several missed calls. At that time, he was arguing with Shen Luofei about cooperation. Did you find Grandma? Yanli is now only concerned about Grandma's health and safety. Master, don't worry. There are eyewitnesses who saw a young lady taking Grandma to the Yangshan hospital. After Yanli hung up the phone, he turned the steering wheel and drove directly to the Yangshan hospital. After Shen Luofei sent the old grandmother to the hospital operating room, after waiting for about half an hour, the old grandmother was pushed out and placed in the next ward. Doctor, how is the old lady? Luckily you brought him here in time. The patient is fine now. By the way, did you give the patient any medicine before? Yes, it's a quick-acting asthma pill that I developed myself. It was this quick-acting asthma pill that saved the old lady's heart. The doctor praised Shen Luofei's medical skills. Seeing that the old lady was fine, Shen Luofei rushed back to take care of Ruibao. The old lady didn't wake up. She didn't know how to contact her family, but she couldn't stay here any longer. At this time, a nurse came running over in a hurry. The family of the old lady with asthma just arrived. Since the old lady's family members have come, that's great. Shen Luofei refused to meet with the family members and also hoped that the hospital would not reveal her identity. She saved the old lady not for any reward. Yanli hurriedly got out of the car and rushed towards the inpatient department of the hospital, but suddenly a familiar figure came into his sight. He looked closely and it was Shen Luofei. Why is Shen Luofei here? If Shen Luofei hadn't hurriedly gotten into the car, he would have suspected that she was really following him. Shen Luofei didn't see him and the car quickly disappeared from sight. Looking at Shen Luofei's anxious look, is he rushing to go on a date with Yun Feiyang? Har, no wonder this woman distanced herself from me. Her heart had long gone to another man. Yanli's handsome face was immediately covered with a layer of gloom, and even his pace quickened. Why did Martin Fei behind him smell a strong smell of vinegar? Is the president jealous? As soon as he entered the ward, Yanli's tense heart finally relaxed after he confirmed that Grandma was fine. Yanli replaced a maid to take care of his grandmother, and he pulled the attending doctor out of the door. The attending physician did not expect that the old lady's grandson was Yanli, the president of G Group. He was so frightened that he felt unnatural. Who brought my grandma to the hospital? It's a young girl. What's her name? Where is she? The doctor shook his head. I don't know her name. She left when she knew the old lady was fine. Did she leave her phone number? I want to thank her. Yanli asked anxiously. No. The doctor expressed his apology. Yanli let the doctor go, and then called Martin Fei to investigate the surveillance. He must know who saved Grandma. However, Martin Fei said frustratedly that the surveillance in that place was destroyed, as if someone wanted to erase it deliberately. Yanli fell into suspicion. Little fairy. Yanli was sitting in the ward when he suddenly heard his grandmother's voice. He stood up abruptly, walked to the bedside, held his grandmother's hand, and said in surprise, "Grandma, you're awake." Grandma Ji slowly opened her eyes, and when she saw clearly that she was in the hospital and the one guarding her was her grandson Yanli, she was a little disappointed and asked unhappily, "Why are you here? Where's my fairy?" Just now he was disliked by Shen Luofei, and now even his grandmother who loved him the most began to dislike him. Is he so annoying? Yanli's mood quickly turned bad, and he pursed his lips. I heard you were sick so I rushed over. Are you feeling better? Grandma Ji rolled her eyes at Yanli. I thought you were so busy dating that woman Yang Chushi that you forgot about Grandma. Don't worry, Grandma hasn't been mad at you to death yet. There was a tone of complaint and anger in these words. Yanli frowned. Grandma, I'm not in love with Yang Chushi. Don't think that I can't hear those rumors outside just because I'm old. Since you're not in love, let her stay away from you. By the way, is the fairy who saved me here? I asked the doctors and they said gone. Grandma Ji immediately became unhappy and drove him away with a cold face. Why are you still standing here? Go find her quickly. If there's no fairy, you won't be able to see your living grandma. If you want me to find her, you must tell me what her characteristics are and what she looks like. Huacheng is so big, it's hard to find someone. Grandma Ji tried hard to recall the vague image of the little fairy. She smells so good, and her medical skills are amazing. She gave me a little pill to save my life. As for her looks, I think she looks a lot like Luofei. Shen Luofei is a doctor and also appeared in the hospital. All the evidence points to her. Grandma, are you sure it's Shen Luofei? If it was really her, there's no way she wouldn't have recognized you. Grandma Ji was unconscious at the time and she couldn't be completely sure. Luofei has returned to China, right? You can go and ask her in person and you will understand. Maybe Luofei is unwilling to show up because she was hurt by you back then. If I were her, I would not see your annoying ex-husband either. Grandma Ji may be old, but her heart is young. She is closely following the movements of her former grandson's wife. After all, Luofei gave birth to a sensible, well-behaved and cute genius baby. Baby Yushi is much cuter than her grandson who always has a sour face and is cold. Season banquet. Who is Grandma's biological grandson? Grandma is really asking for trouble. Shen Luofei quickly hacked the surveillance camera and then heaved a sigh of relief. She now remembered that the person she saved was Ji Yanli's grandmother. Grandma Ji suffered from severe asthma and needed to recuperate in Baiyun Temple on the mountain all year round. Therefore, they only met once from their marriage to their divorce, but Grandma Ji often mailed her natural medicinal herbs and mountain delicacies from the mountains. During those 2 years, Grandpa Ji and Grandma Ji were the only people who gave her warmth. Shen Luofei shook her head and put aside those memories. As soon as she opened the door after returning home, a cute little creature quickly hung on her legs like a little koala. Yushi opened his eyes wide and asked worriedly, Mommy, why did you come back so late today? Could she have had a fight with Daddy? Chapter 22. Two little ones swapped. Mommy, it's okay. There was a traffic jam on the road. Baby, you must be hungry. Mommy will make dinner for you right away. Shen Luofei raised the fresh dishes in his hand. Yushi stretched out his little hand, took the bag from Shen Luofei, and smiled obediently. Mommy, you've worked hard. I'll help you pick the vegetables. Shen Luofei felt soft-hearted when she saw Yushi was so sensible. Good. After dinner, Shen Luofei said to the little guy with a smile. Ruoren, Mommy may have to stay in Huacheng for a while. Your studies cannot be delayed, so Mommy has chosen a kindergarten for you. Mommy will send you to Luochen kindergarten tomorrow. Shen Luofei knew that his son didn't like going to school, and there was some nervousness in his brows after he said this. Yushi was quite afraid that Mommy would take Ruibao away without reconciling with Daddy. Now Mommy has offered to stay, which gives them some time. Yushi is extremely happy. He was so cute and soft and promised, Mommy, I'm fine. Shen Luofei. Shen Luofei was a little surprised that Ruoren agreed without hesitation. When Yushi saw the shocked expression in his mother's eyes, his heart skipped a beat and the smile on his little face became very stiff. He forgot that Ruoren hated going to kindergarten because the kids there were too childish, and he was already familiar with all the content, so it was so boring to go there. In fact, Yushi also agreed with Ruoren's idea, but his father had said before that children should go to school on an orderly basis, so he was not as resistant as Ruoren. Mommy. I agreed to go to kindergarten because there are teachers and classmates there, so you don't have to work and take care of me at the same time. I don't want Mommy to be so tired. After hearing the little guy's reason, Shen Luofei hugged him in his arms. Ruibao, thank you. Yushi also happily hugged his mother tightly with his little hands and rubbed against her arms. Since he started living with Mommy, he likes her more and more, and he doesn't want to leave her. Therefore, he must get Daddy and Mommy back together as soon as possible. Luochen Kindergarten is only 1 street away from Winter Kindergarten. There is no other way, the three best kindergartens in Huacheng are all together. The clothes that mommy picked for him were all those children's clothes with cartoon patterns in the middle. Although Yushi didn't like them, he had no choice but to wear them in order to play the role of Ruebao better. Not only are the clothes childish, but there is also a big little bear on the school bag. Shen Luofei personally sent the little guy to kindergarten. When she saw Yushi look depressed, she touched his head with her hand. "Baby, are you unhappy because you don't like going to school?" Yushi quickly raised her head and smiled. "Mommy, I'm not unhappy." Oh, mommy saw it wrong. When getting off the car, Shen Luofei gave Yushi a kiss, and Yushi waved at her. "Mommy, goodbye." Shen Luofei watched Yushi enter the school. Yushi was carrying a small blue school bag and wearing a yellow children's casual t-shirt. As soon as he entered the campus, he instantly attracted everyone's attention. "Wow, that kid is so handsome and cute, so adorable. I don't know whose child this is, but I'm sure his parents must be very good looking." Yushi's ears got calluses from hearing all these compliments. On their way to their winter kindergarten. Ever since the last quarrel with Daddy, Ruoren has ignored him for several days. Today Yanli decided to send him to school personally. The two guys, one big and one small, remained silent, and a weird atmosphere filled the car. This little guy is getting more and more irritable, but Suibai's words of warning are still fresh in his ears. Yanli remembered what Suibai said about taking Yushi to the amusement park, so he spoke. "Daddy will take you to the amusement park this weekend, okay?" Ruoren originally ignored his stinky daddy, but when his daddy took the initiative to suggest taking him to the amusement park, his big eyes suddenly lit up. Yanli saw all the little guy's reactions. Yushi was moved, so that would be easy. Even though Ruoren wanted to go out and play very much, he was almost going crazy being cooped up here with his daddy, but he deliberately put on a stern face and spoke coolly. "I'll think about it. This little thing is really becoming more and more like him, and has even learned to put on airs. Okay, Daddy will give you some time." Ruoren was extremely reluctant to go to kindergarten, but if he didn't go it would arouse suspicion, so he had to hold his temper and go to kindergarten. As soon as he arrived at the kindergarten, Ruoren complained to Yushi that kindergarten was so boring. Yushi told him that his mother also let him go to kindergarten. Knowing that Yushi's kindergarten is right next to Ruoren's, the chances of the two little guys meeting secretly in private increased. Ruoren quickly told Yushi the news that his daddy was going to take him to the amusement park. Yushi was worried that he had no chance for his daddy and mommy to develop a relationship, so he asked Ruoren to agree quickly. The specific details were not clear on the bracelet, so they planned to make an appointment to meet, and Ruoren said it would be after school. Daddy has to work overtime for a meeting tonight, and the person who comes to pick him up is Uncle Mar. Uncle Mar is simpler than Daddy and he is easy to fool. It was almost time to go home from school, and the two little guys were looking out the window absent-mindedly, wishing they could rush out to meet each other right away. "Master, aren't you going to work overtime tonight?" A Rolls-Royce Phantom slowly drove towards the kindergarten, and Martin Fei asked in confusion. "I want to give Yushi a surprise." Next to the seats at the seasonal banquet were the latest robot toys. "Boss, if the young master knew your good intentions, he would be very touched." The corners of Yanli's mouth slowly curled up into an arc of joy. The next second, Yanli looked out the window and saw Yushi running hurriedly towards the kindergarten. He was startled. Shouldn't Yushi be in the kindergarten at this time? Why was he outside? Could it be that the little guy skipped class? That's not right. Yushi is a good boy. He has good academic performance, never skips classes, and certainly never wears such childish clothes. Parking. Yanli frowned, and Martin Fei had to slam on the brakes. Yanli used his long legs to quickly chase after Yushi, who was running out of breath. Yushi looked back while panting and found that he was caught by his daddy, who was looking at him with an angry face. Oh no, Yushi's eyes were in a panic and his little body was even shaking a little. Didn't Ruoren say that Daddy wouldn't come over tonight? Now that they were caught red-handed, if Ruoren came to meet them at the agreed place later, their identities would be exposed. Based on Daddy's personality, he would definitely snatch them away and even blame Mommy. What should I do? What should I do? Yushi's mind was in a mess. Yanli spoke in a deep voice. Yushi, why did you run out instead of staying in school? What happened to your clothes? Facing his father's questioning, Yushi was a little incoherent. Daddy, that. Yanli's anger was rising, his patience was exhausted, and he shouted angrily with a serious face. Still not telling the truth. Chapter 23. Will mommy accept Uncle Muzi? Yushi was frightened by his father's yelling, and now he forced himself to calm down. He raised his head, looked at Yanli and explained. Daddy, I didn't skip school. I was just hungry, so I went out early to buy some food. The food stains accidentally splashed on my clothes, so I just bought something to change into. I was on my way back to school when I met you. Yushi prayed in his heart that his daddy could be fooled. However, good things don't work, but bad things do. Yanli is not so easily deceived, so he continued to ask. Which store did you go to for food and what did you eat? And which store did you go to for your clothes? He had a hunch that Yushi was lying, as if he was hiding some secret from him. This. Daddy is too smart now. He will definitely be exposed after asking this. Seeing that Yushi couldn't answer, Yanli was about to get angry. At this moment, a middle-aged woman in her 50s walked towards Yushi. Little friend, you are here. You came to my restaurant to eat just now, and I forgot to give you the change. The aunt took out some change and stuffed it into Yushi's little hand apologetically. Yushi was stunned at first. He didn't know this lady and had never eaten in her restaurant. Fortunately, Yushi was quick-witted and he immediately politely thanked the aunt. Thank you, Grandma. I did forget just now. The food at Grandma's is delicious. Daddy, do you want to go to Grandma's store to eat something? Yushi raised his head and looked at Yanli with his innocent big eyes. Did he blame Yushi wrongly? Why didn't Yushi explain at that time? Or was he still angry with him because he didn't want to explain? Sir, you are the child's daddy, so handsome. The aunt couldn't help but be infatuated with him. Yanli ignored the aunt, looked at Yushi, and then replied coldly, I don't want to eat anymore, let's go home. Yanli never eats junk food outside. Yanli bent down and quickly picked up the little Yushi in his arms, then coldly got into the car. After Yanli put Yushi in the car, he didn't dare to breathe. It seemed that his father believed him temporarily. What he was worried about now was Ruoren. Firstly, I'm afraid that daddy will find Ruoren, and secondly, what if mommy can't find him after he goes home with daddy? Yushi didn't dare to send a message to Ruoren. He sat there stiffly, looking anxious. It was not until he returned to the familiar villa and was out of his father's sight that Yushi dared to contact Ruoren. Ruoren replied immediately. It turned out that he was the one who arranged that lady. When Ruoren came out of school and saw Yushi, he realized that he was caught by his father, so he had to hide. Then, when Yushi was about to be exposed, he found the owner of the snack bar, made up a story, and gave the proprietress a reward of 100 yuan. Yushi finally understood that it was Ruoren who helped him. They were switched back by accident. Yushi definitely couldn't go out now. Mommy would be worried if she couldn't see him, so Ruoren had to appear at mommy's side immediately. Ruebao, why are you here? Say mommy and mommy will come. Ruoren's heart was pounding. He quickly hid the bracelet, then turned around and excitedly threw himself into Shen Luofei's arms. Mommy, I'm thirsty. I bought a cup of milk tea and was just about to go back to the kindergarten gate. Ruoren was holding a cup of milk tea in his hand. Ruoren was very happy to see his mother again, but he hid his feelings. After get off work, Shen Luofei drove to the kindergarten in a hurry. However, when all the children in the kindergarten had left, she still hadn't seen Ruoren. She even went to the school to ask, and the surveillance showed that Ruoren had left the school early. Shen Luofei was extremely worried, fearing that something might have happened, so she drove around the school to look for him, and that's when she found Ruoren. Ruebao, you scared mommy to death. You must never be outside alone in the future, okay? Yes, mommy, I promise you, this kind of thing will never happen again. Shen Luofei finally breathed a sigh of relief, and a smile appeared on his tense face. As she held Ruoren's hand and got into the car, she noticed that Ruoren was not wearing cartoon clothes, but his favorite suit. Shen Luofei frowned. Ruebao, why did you change your clothes? You don't like this style. Time was too urgent, and he was so busy helping Yushi fool his dad that he forgot to change his clothes. Ruoren scratched his little head and smiled. Mommy, I accidentally spilled milk tea on my clothes just now. The clothing store next door only has this style, so I'll just change the style reluctantly. Although this dress looks a bit formal, her baby is so beautiful that she looks good in anything. Looking closely, Ruibao in a suit looks exactly like Yanli. Of course, that guy always has a sour face, nothing like her baby son who is so lively, cute and lovable. Mommy, I haven't eaten the food you cooked for a long time. Let's go home quickly. Ruibao, didn't you eat the food mommy made yesterday? Shen Luofei's face was full of confusion. Yeah, sorry, mommy, I forgot. Ruibao stuck out his tongue guiltily. Shen Luofei felt that Ruibao was acting strange today. He was obviously more lively, whereas he was so quiet before. At this tense moment, Shen Luofei's cell phone rang. Ruibao, wait for mommy in the car. Ruoran finally escaped the disaster and sat in the car obediently waiting for his mommy. Luofei, I'm sorry, I was in the lab and didn't hear the call. What do you want to talk to me about? Are you and Ruibao okay? Did Yanli cause you any trouble? Xu Mu's voice, gentle as jade but with a hint of nervousness, came from the phone. Rui Ran and I are doing fine. Yanli doesn't dare to cause me any trouble. I decided to stay in Huacheng. You want to stay? Well, besides work, I also want to investigate the cause of death of my grandfather and mother. Can I help you? No, I can handle it myself. I called you today because I sent Ruibao to Luochen kindergarten. It's too far from the city, so I bought a house in the city. I have already cleaned up the villa and want to return it to you. Okay, I respect any decision you make. After this experiment is completed, let's have a meal together. NU will also be coming to Huacheng on a business trip soon. Really? That's great. Then when the time comes, I'll personally welcome her back, and you're not allowed to snatch it from me. After hanging up the phone, Shen Luofei's pretty face was filled with a happy smile. Mommy, who were you talking to on the phone just now? Ruibao asked curiously. Your uncle Mu Ziyi. Before Ruibao got along with his daddy and met his brother Yushi, he supported Uncle Xu Muse in pursuing his mommy. But now he was a little shaken. Although daddy had made him angry during this period, he still hoped to give daddy a few more chances. After all, he didn't want to be separated from Yushi. Ruibao nervously moved his little body and asked tentatively. Mommy, if Uncle Xu Muse confesses his love to you, will you accept him? Chapter 24 Shen Luofei kidnaps Yushi. Shen Luofei was stunned at first, then rubbed the little guy's face. Mommy only thinks of Uncle Xu Muse as her brother, why did you suddenly become so gossipy? After hearing Mommy's answer, Ruoran asked again worriedly. In other words, even if Uncle Mu Zi confesses his feelings, you won't be his girlfriend. Ruoran seemed to be particularly concerned about this issue today. Shen Luofei restrained the smile on his face and looked at the persistent Ruibao very seriously. Ruoran, Uncle Xu only treats Mommy as a sister like Aunt Enyu. We will not be together. Don't let your imagination run wild. Rui Ran finally breathed a sigh of relief after getting the exact answer. He smiled and said, that's the best. Shen Luofei didn't think much about it and took Ruibao directly back to the newly purchased high-rise apartment with fine decoration. At the Ji family, Yanli pushed open the door of Yushi's bedroom. Yushi turned around quickly and called out timidly. Daddy, what's wrong? Yanli saw the long-lost respect in Yushi's eyes. In the past few days, Yushi had been acting like a little devil who was fearless and defied everyone. Yushi's changes were so fast that Yanli was caught off guard. Yanli took a breath, walked to the bed and sat down, then reached out and touched Yushi's head. Yushi didn't dare to resist. He thought his dad would find out that he was lying and planned to settle the score now. After all, lying was what Yushi was worst at. Yushi, if you are hungry or thirsty in the future, you can call Uncle Mar in advance. The food outside is not clean and it is not good for your health. Yushi secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He nodded gently, his big eyes full of sincerity. Yanli was happy and distressed that his son had returned to normal. Daddy, can you stay and sleep with me tonight? He always sleeps with his mommy at her place. Seeing Yushi's eager eyes, Yanli smiled, of course. After Yanli took a shower in the bathroom, she changed into pajamas and went to bed and hugged little Yushi. His son was mostly in awe of him and he almost never asked to sleep with him. Yushi was so clingy to him tonight. Yanli was actually in a very good mood. He felt that his son needed him. Daddy's arms are completely different from Mommy's arms. Daddy's arms are hard and have a pleasant smell of male hormones, while Mommy's arms are soft and fragrant. Yanli patted Yushi's little back gently, and Yushi slowly closed his eyes. In the middle of the night, Yushi had a nightmare. He dreamed that Mommy took Ruibao away, and he was forcibly caught by Daddy. Even though he struggled and cried, he could only watch Mommy and Ruibao disappear from his sight. "Mommy, don't leave me!" Yushi shouted uncontrollably. His whole body was covered in sweat and his little face was full of fear, which showed how real this dream was. Yanli looked at Yushi, his eyes suddenly became very sharp. "Yushi, what's wrong with you?" Yushi woke up and thought, "It's over." He seemed to call out, "Mommy," but fortunately he didn't call out Ruibao's name. "Daddy, I had a nightmare, He didn't dare mention Mommy because Daddy would be unhappy. Yanli guessed that Yushi's nightmare was related to Shen Luofei. Humph, it was that heartless woman who caused Yushi to become like this. Seeing Shen Luofei happily and passionately dating his new love, Yanli felt very unhappy. Shen Luofei, who was sleeping soundly, was woken up by a sneeze, and Ruoren next to him was also awakened. He stretched out his hand and rubbed his sleepy eyes, and asked with concern, "Mommy, do you have a cold?" Shen Luofei shook her head. "Mommy doesn't have a cold, Ruibao, it's the weekend today, do you want to sleep a little longer?" Shen Luofei saw Ruibao dozing off. "Mommy, are you still going to the company today?" Shen Luofei shook his head, his face a little heavy. "I'm not going to the company. Mommy wants to go to your great-grandfather and grandmother's graves to sweep the graves." Ruibao is 4 years old, almost 5, and has never met his great-grandfather and grandmother, so he made a sensible suggestion. "Mommy, I also want to visit my great-grandfather and grandma's graves." Shen Luofei was stunned for a moment, then agreed. Shen Luofei bought some fruits and other tributes. Ruibao held 2 bouquets of flowers in her hands, and the mother and son came to the grave of their grandfather and mother. Shen Luofei came to the tombstone, feeling very sad. He looked at the photo on the tombstone for a long time and his eyes became wet. Ruoren deeply felt his mother's sadness, and he was also in a very low mood. He looked at the kind photos of his great-grandfather and grandmother on the tombstone, then he tactfully placed 2 bouquets of flowers in front of the 2 tombstones and knelt in front of the tombstones. "Hello, great-grandfather and grandmother. I am Mommy's son, Shen Ruoren. Thank you for raising such an excellent Mommy. Don't worry, I will take good care of Mommy. Please bless us in heaven." After saying this, he kowtowed 3 times to the 2 of them. Hearing her son's filial words, Shen Luofei glanced back at her tears. She placed the tribute and then looked at the photo solemnly and said, "Grandpa, Mother, I will investigate this matter and give you justice. As for the company that was robbed, I will also take it back. Rest in peace." After paying homage to their grandfather and mother, the mother and son walked down the mountain hand in hand. Shen Luofei raised her eyes and glanced at the woods in front of her inadvertently. She saw a woman in a beige woolen coat flash by. She froze in place, and when she wanted to chase after her, the woman was gone. "Mommy, what's wrong with you?" The clever Ruibao has already noticed that something is wrong with Mommy. The back of the woman just now looked very much like Yang Chushi, but Yang Chushi didn't seem to have any family buried here, so it was unlikely that she would come to the cemetery. "It's okay, let's go home early." Shen Luofei took Ruibao into the car. Little did they know that in the woods not far away, Yang Chushi's vicious eyes were always staring at Shen Luofei and the little boy she was holding. Shen Luofei's grandfather and mother are buried here, so it's not surprising that she comes to pay homage. But who is the little boy holding the hand next to her? Judging from his appearance and height, he looks very much like Yanli's son Yushi. Shouldn't that little bastard Yushi be in the Ji family? How could he be with Shen Luofei? Or maybe Shen Luofei has already recognized the little bastard in private and brought him to pay tribute to her relatives. She guessed that Shen Luofei's return this time was not a simple matter, and her target must be Yanli. However, she knew that Yanli hated her so much that he would never agree to get back together. The only connection between Shen Luofei and Yanli is that little bastard Yushi. In the past few years, she tried every way to please the little bastard, but the little bastard was quite repulsive to her. Now her relationship with Yanli is not confirmed, and she does not have Yanli's child. If the little bastard and Shen Luofei join forces, then her dream of marrying Yanli will become a daydream. She wanted to tell Ji Yanli about Shen Luofei's kidnapping of the little bastard, so that Shen Luofei's conspiracy would be completely exposed. Chapter 25 Ruibao destroys surveillance. When Yang Chushi excitedly arrived at the door of Ji's villa, he was stopped by the bodyguard. I have something important to tell Brother Ji, please let me in. I'm sorry, Miss Yang. President Ji said you are not allowed to come in. Please leave. The bodyguard still drove her away with an expressionless face. Yang Chushi was so angry that her mouth was twisted. She could only call Ji Yanli, but the call was rejected after she called 3 times and was finally blocked. I'm not allowed to attend the seasonal banquet at home, but it should be okay at the company. Yang Chushi hurried to Ji's group again. As soon as she entered Ji's group, she was stopped by the front desk. Yang Chushi had just been humiliated by the bodyguards in the villa, and was filled with rage, and was looking for a place to vent. Ms. Yang, President Ji is in a meeting today. You can't see him without an appointment. Yang Chushi was immediately furious and glared at the front desk clerk in anger. Do you know who I am? I want to come and see Brother Ji. Do I need an appointment? Of course the receptionist knew that she was Yang Chushi, the rumored future young mistress of the Ji family, and she really didn't dare to offend her. Ms. Yang, I can't do anything about it. This is the company's policy. How about you give President Ji a call? If the call had gone through, she wouldn't have to come to the company. I don't want to disturb Brother Ji at work because of me. I distinguish between public and private matters. When will Brother Ji get off work? Yang Chushi seemed to be trying to save face by pretending to be considerate. The meeting will probably end at noon. This overtime meeting was mainly for the development of the medical direction of Ji Group. Boss Ji, I heard that Yun Feiyang is going to cooperate with Amelia. Amelia controls the formula and technology of the cancer drug. If this business is taken away by Yun's pharmaceutical, then our performance in the pharmaceutical field will be far behind. If we want to defeat Yun's medicine, the best way is to cooperate with Xiao Yuyu. I heard that Amelia is Xiao Yuyu's apprentice. Xiao Yuyu must be better than Amelia in medical skills. Upon hearing this, the wrinkles between Ji Yanli's brows were big enough to kill a fly. Others don't know Amelia, but he knows that she is Shen Luofei. Shen Luofei and Yun Feiyang work together because they have that kind of relationship. Every time he thought of Shen Luofei and Yun Feiyang, he felt extremely unhappy. I have already submitted a cooperation agreement to Xiao Yuyu. I believe Xiao Yuyu will definitely choose to cooperate with us. Last time, he didn't even get to meet the mysterious Xiao Yuyu and was rejected by Shen Luofei. This time, he must meet Xiao Yuyu to finalize the cooperation. With President Ji stepping forward, it will surely be a quick success. After the meeting, Ji Yanli told Martin Fei. Have you contacted Xiao Yuyu? Martin Fei replied cautiously. Boss Ji, this Xiao Yuyu's whereabouts are very mysterious. I checked all the major flights and there is no one with this name on board. Few people in the company have seen Xiao Yuyu. Keep investigating until you meet Xiao Yuyu. Also, Ji Yanli hesitated. Boss, do you have any other instructions? Martin Fei asked in a low voice with great insight. Find out all the information about Shen Luofei's meeting with Yun Feiyang alone, and keep a close eye on them at all times. Of course, we can't let them find out. An ambiguous smile appeared on Martin Fei's face. The president must be jealous. What are you looking at? Go to work. When Ji Yanli looked up, he saw Martin Fei's strange smile and his expression was very unnatural. Yes, President, I'll do it right away. When Ji Yanli came out of the elevator, Yang Chushi excitedly stepped forward and spoke in a pinched voice that sounded extremely aggrieved. Brother Ji, are you finally done? Why are you here? Ji Yanli's expression turned even colder when he saw Yang Chushi. Brother Ji, I have something very important to tell you. I can't contact you, so I can only wait for you in the company. What's the important thing? Yang Chushi glanced at her colleagues who were all looking at her with curious eyes, and she pointed outside. Can we talk outside? It's not convenient here. If you have something to say, please tell me now. Ji Yanli has no patience. It's about Yushi and Shen Luofei. Yang Chushi blurted out anxiously. Ji Yanli froze in his tracks and glanced at Yang Chushi, whose face was full of seriousness, with a puzzled look. Go outside and talk. Brother Ji, I didn't even have lunch because I was waiting for you. Why don't we talk while we eat? Yang Chushi covered her stomach pitifully. Ji Yanli nodded and went to the restaurant with her. Yang Chushi was secretly delighted. Go ahead. Ji Yanli didn't waste time and went straight to the point. I saw Shen Luofei with a child at the cemetery today. That child looked very much like Yushi. After hearing this, Ji Yanli's handsome face was covered with a layer of haze, and his deep eyes seemed to want to chisel a hole in Yang Chushi's face. Are you sure? Do you have any photos? I'm sure, but it was too far away and the time was too urgent, so I didn't take the photo. This is what annoyed Yang Chushi the most. With the photo, she could be convicted of kidnapping the young master of the Ji family and be sent to jail. You mean Shen Luofei kidnapped Yushi? Well, Luofei is too much. How could she take Yushi to such a gloomy place? Why are you there? Ji Yanli immediately sent a message to the villa's housekeeper, and the housekeeper replied that Yushi had been at home the whole day and definitely had not gone out. That means the boy Shen Luofei took away was not Yushi. Who could it be? Could it be a child born to another wild man? Today is the anniversary of my relative's death and I am going there to pay my respects. I see. I will investigate this matter thoroughly. Don't talk nonsense before the truth comes out. After saying this, Ji Yanli was about to get up and leave. After Ji Yanli returned home, he went to see Yushi first. Yushi, you didn't go out today, did you? Yushi's head was shaking like a rattle, and Daddy's expression was so weird. Yushi intuitively knew something was wrong, so he immediately sent a message to Ruibao. Ruibao went to the cemetery today, so he quickly checked the cemetery surveillance and found that Yang Chushi was secretly following Mommy. This bad woman must be doing something bad, so Ruibao thought quickly and hacked into the cemetery's surveillance camera and modified the characters on the surveillance screen before closing the computer happily. Ji Yanli called up the surveillance footage of the cemetery. From beginning to end, he only saw Shen Luofei coming to the cemetery to worship alone, and did not see any children. However, Yang Chushi swore that Shen Luofei brought a child with her. Was she blind or did she think he was a fool? Yushi secretly stuck his head out and saw that his daddy looked very unhappy. He guessed that Ruibao's plan was successful. Humph, they once again defeated the bad woman's conspiracy, yay. If Ruibao hadn't photoshopped out his own figure, their identities would have been discovered by Daddy. What a close call. Yang Chushi was still happily drinking red wine and dreaming about marrying into the Ji family and becoming a wealthy lady. She received a call from Ji Yanli and immediately burst into joy. Hey, brother Ji. Any man would not be able to stand such a numb voice. Yang Chushi, there is no child in the surveillance video. Don't talk nonsense in the future, otherwise don't blame me for being rude. Ji Yanli started scolding Yang Chushi. Yang Chushi's wine glass fell to the ground and shattered. She couldn't believe it. Why did this happen? Chapter 26. This woman hates him so much. Brother Ji, you have to believe me, I really didn't lie. Yang Chushi was so anxious that she was about to cry. She couldn't become a liar who was trying to sow discord in Ji Yanli's mind. Watch the video yourself. After saying that, Ji Yanli sent the video over so that Yang Chushi could see clearly, and then hung up the phone with a click. Yang Chushi opened the video with trembling hands. She watched it over and over again. There was only Shen Luofei in the video. Could it be that she had encountered a ghost? Shen Luofei prepared breakfast for Ruoren. She came over to call him to eat and saw Ruoren excitedly typing away on the computer. Ruoren, what are you doing? Shen Luofei walked over and saw a series of code symbols flashing on the computer screen. Ruibao quickly closed his laptop, a hint of guilt flashing across his eyes. Nothing, just playing a game. How can a game be code? Shen Luofei is also an expert in computers, and Ruoren's lies cannot deceive her. Ruoren was stunned for a moment, then an idea came to him. Mommy, you are so smart. This is the program for a new game I developed. This explanation dispelled Shen Luofei's doubts. She squatted down, held Ruibao's soft little face, and said in surprise. Ruibao, you are amazing. When did you learn game programming? Being praised by Mommy like this, Ruibao felt a little embarrassed. I just started learning, Mommy, I missed your breakfast so much, let's go eat. In order to avoid Mommy's questioning, Ruoren quickly grabbed Shen Luofei and ran towards the restaurant. The breakfast at Daddy's house is made by 5-star chefs. Although it is exquisite and high-end, it is far inferior to what Mommy makes. Ruoran first ate a meat bun, then fried dumplings, and finally drank a large glass of soy milk. His belly felt round and he burped. Shen Luofei was shocked when she saw Ruibao wolfing down the breakfast in front of him. Ruibao, are you hungry? You always chewed your food slowly before. Ruoran looked at his mother's strange eyes, and his heart skipped a beat. He smiled unnaturally and said, "That's because the meat buns made by mommy are so delicious, so I can't control myself. If you like it, mommy makes it for you every day. But don't eat it so fast, be careful not to choke." Shen Luofei gave kind advice. Ruibao nodded his little head repeatedly. "Yeah, mommy, I know." After Ruibao finished eating, he went back to his room and started tinkering with his computer secretly. Why does Shen Luofei feel that Ruibao is weird? Is he really designing a game? Tang Shisha told Shen Luofei as soon as she arrived at the company after she sent Ruibao to kindergarten. "Boss Shen, Ji's group called again to make an appointment for a meeting with Boss Qiao, and I don't know how to refuse. If I continue to stop Ji Yanli from meeting Qiao Yuyu, he will become suspicious. It seems that Ji Yanli has temporarily put aside his grudges against Yang Chushi for her, and is even very determined to cooperate with the company. Ji Yanli has deep love for his white moonlight and cinnabar mole." Shen Luofei smiled sarcastically, "Just say that Mr. Qiao's future work location will be abroad." I said, "The other party said that even if Mr. Qiao is abroad, they still have to make an appointment to meet. Ji Yanli won't give up until he sees Qiao Yuyu." When the company was first founded, because the domestic headquarters was set up in Huacheng, Shen Luofei used the pseudonym Qiao Yuyu in order to avoid being discovered by Ji Yanli. Unexpectedly, this still caused trouble. At this time, Shen Luofei's cell phone rang. She picked it up and saw a familiar string of numbers. She asked Tang Shisher to go out and work first, and looking at the ringing phone, she pressed the answer button. "Shen Luofei, as long as you agree to cooperate with us, I will agree to any conditions you put forward." Ji Yanli's low and arrogant voice came from the phone. "Boss Ji, how did you know my cell phone number? It's easy for me to get your number, but I'm surprised that I haven't been blocked by your new number." The seasonal banquet ceremony was slightly teasing. Shen Luofei thought that Ji Yanli would never call her on his own initiative in his life, so she didn't do so. "Don't reject me. My patience is limited. I know that your project development requires a lot of funds and technical equipment, and according to your current situation, you simply cannot afford such expensive expenses. What Ji's group lacks the least is money and equipment. Ji Yanli obviously has a thorough understanding of the company's current difficulties and needs. The three of them originally established this company in order to develop more advanced drugs that could treat various painful diseases. Without money, these wishes cannot be realized at all. The Ji Group provides the money and equipment, and they are responsible for research and development, which is indeed beneficial to both parties. Okay, I can convey your ideas to Mr. Qiao, but what? Shen Luofei finally gave in. "But I can't possibly help cure Yang Chushi's uncle." Shen Luofei was very decisive. Ji Yanli was stunned at first, then quickly spoke in a serious tone. "I have never proposed this condition for Ji's cooperation with your company." He didn't know why Shen Luofei cared so much, and why he believed that he would make such a big concession for Yang Chushi. Shen Luofei seemed to hear a hint of anger in Ji Yanli's words. Shen Luofei was just a little surprised. After all, in her understanding, Ji Yanli forced her to divorce in order to get back together with Yang Chushi. However, Ji Yanli denied it. Should we praise him for being impartial or? In short, Shen Luofei's mind was a little confused. "So when you threatened me to expose Amelia, the additional condition you put forward was, Grandma is not in good health. I hope you can take care of her." Shen Luofei's anxious heart calmed down instantly. It turns out that Ji Yanli was for Grandma Ji, not Yang Chushi. "Shen Luofei, are you unwilling to cooperate because of Yang Chushi? Are you jealous?" Ji Yanli's frown suddenly relaxed, and the doubts in his mind instantly became clear. The corner of his mouth curled up in an arc that he didn't even notice, and there was even a hint of pride in his deep black eyes. The sudden ambiguity caught Shen Luofei off guard, and his originally calm mood instantly became restless. It was not easy for her and Ji Yanli's relationship to change from being tense to being able to discuss cooperation calmly for the time being. For this reason, Shen Luofei's tone was cold and his words were full of resistance. "Boss Ji, you're overthinking it. You already have a fiancé, so please don't be so frivolous with your words. After being sternly warned by Shen Luofei, Ji Yanli's mood was like a roller coaster again. What does Shen Luofei mean? When did he announce that he has a fiancée? He is obviously single. Shen Luofei forced him to pretend that he was not single, and her words were full of disgust. Did this woman hate him so much? Chapter 27 Being kept by an old man. Ji Yanli felt offended and was very unhappy. He was sarcastic and displeased. Shen Luofei, don't be so self-indulgent. I don't have any feelings towards you. I'll let my assistant take the cooperation agreement and you just need to sign it. Ji Yanli felt suffocated, afraid that Shen Luofei would say something unpleasant in rebuttal, so he hung up the phone again. Shen Luofei. There's something wrong with Ji Yanli. Is this man in menopause? His moods are so volatile and abnormal. Although Ji Yanli was emotionally unstable, he was quite quick at work and Martin Fei soon delivered the contract. Before signing the contract, Shen Luofei called the other two shareholders, Xu Muzhi and Xu Enyu. She first called Xu Enyu and informed her of the situation. Luofei, I'll leave all the responsibility of Huaqing's company to you. I will of course fully support your decision. Whatever you say is okay, it's fine. Xu Enyu went to New Zealand this time, nominally on a business trip, but actually for tourism. Xu Enyu is not a person who likes to work from 9 to 5. She is free-spirited by nature and likes to travel around the world to see beautiful sights and eat delicious food. She would also engage in business cooperation if there is a suitable project. She has no interest at all in those boring data related to medical research and development and technology. She is just a figurehead in Luoyuezer, and the actual decision makers are her brother and Luofei. Enyu, thank you. What's the point of saying thank you to each other? You told me before that after Ji Yanli found you, he was very cruel to you and even wanted to drive you away. Now you suddenly ask for cooperation. Is there some conspiracy? Xu Enyu knew very well the grudges between Shen Luofei and Ji Yanli. She would never believe that bastard Ji Yanli would reform. Although Ji Yanli is a jerk, he clearly distinguishes between public and private matters. If this isn't a conspiracy, does he regret divorcing you and wants to pursue you again under the guise of work? Xu Enyu is optimistic about her brother and Shen Luofei, but her stupid brother is too dull and she is very anxious. In Xiong country, there were also many men pursuing Shen Luofei, but Shen Luofei rejected them all. But Ji Yanli is different from other men. He is the only man Shen Luofei has deeply loved since childhood, and they even have a child. If Ji Yanli pursues Luofei again, there is no guarantee that Luofei will not return to his arms. By then, wouldn't his brother be completely hopeless? Shen Luofei burst out laughing, she really couldn't control it. Xu Enyu on the other end of the phone was so anxious that she wanted to fly over immediately. She asked anxiously, "What are you laughing at?" "Enyu, it's been impossible for Ji Yanli and I to be together since our divorce, and he already has a child with Yang Chushi. A good horse never turns back, and the emotional scars she suffered from Ji Yanli are still painful at this moment. She won't be stupid enough to be abused by the same man again. If this scumbag has a child with his mistress, you should stay away from him even more." Xu Enyu was indignant. "I know. Ji Yanli wants me to treat Grandma Ji. After all, Grandpa Ji and Grandma Ji are very good to me. Even if he doesn't come to me, I will help Grandma Ji." After explaining everything to Xu Enyu, Shen Luofei called Xu Muzhi, but Xu Muzhi didn't answer, so Shen Luofei left him a message. Not long after, Xu Muzhi simply answered with a few words, leaving everything to her. Seeing that the brother and sister had the same trust in her, Shen Luofei was very moved. For the company's development prospects, she signed the contract. When Martin Fei was leaving, he said goodbye to Shen Luofei politely. "Ms. Shen, actually, President Ji and Yang Chushi's relationship is not what everyone imagines." Seeing that Ms. Shen misunderstood President Ji, and that the cold and aloof President Ji refused to explain, his assistant was very anxious. Shen Luofei didn't expect Martin Fei to talk about this, and her expression remained cold. "Assistant Mar, I am only working with your CEO Ji on business matters. As for your CEO Ji's personal feelings, they have nothing to do with me. You don't need to explain to me." "Sorry." Seeing that Shen Luofei's words were firm, Martin Fei didn't say anything more. He apologized and left the company. Shen Luofei looked at the time and Rueba was about to finish school. If she cooperates with Ji Group, her work will definitely be busier and working overtime will be common. She may not be able to pick up Ruibao from the kindergarten in time. She couldn't imagine what happened yesterday. After much thought, she decided to take some time tomorrow to go to the job market to hire a nanny to take care of Ruoren. After leaving the company, Ruibao sent her a message saying that he wanted to drink milk tea. Seeing that it was still early, she went to a famous milk tea shop in the next shopping mall and bought a cup of milk tea. Shen Luofei, you actually have the nerve to return to China. As soon as she walked out of the milk tea shop, she heard a familiar harsh voice. Shen Luofei stopped and looked up to see her ex-mother-in-law Xie Jinglei, who was wearing a fur coat, carrying an Hermes bag, and dressed in jewels. Seeing Xie Jinglei's poorly made-up face, Shen Luofei's face became completely gloomy. She frowned. She went out without checking the almanac today and met one of the people she hated the most. Shen Luofei's only remaining memories of her former mother-in-law were her troubles and malice. Therefore, there was no need for her to pay attention to someone who had nothing to do with her, so Shen Luofei straightened his back and walked towards her without looking away. Xie Jinglei was so angry that she almost fumed. This woman actually turned a blind eye to her. Xie Jinglei yelled at the bodyguard next to her, "Stop her for me." The bodyguards had no choice but to step forward and block Shen Luofei's way out. Xie Jinglei walked up to Shen Luofei in her high heels, and her arrogant gaze fell on Shen Luofei's neither humble nor arrogant face. Shen Luofei had light makeup on her face. It was obviously the same face, but she was more charming and enchanting than 5 years ago. Her whole aura was completely different. Shen Luofei used to be timid, but now she has a strong aura, like a queen. Furthermore, everything she was wearing and the watch she was wearing were from the world's top luxury brands, especially the bag in her hand, which she had been longing for a long time, but in the end she felt regretful because she couldn't get it. Unexpectedly, this limited edition bag was in Shen Luofei's hands. The woman who used to be humble and obedient to her now looked arrogant, so she continued to speak with dissatisfaction. "Shen Luofei, are you deaf? Why didn't you call me when you saw me? I haven't seen you for a few years, and you have become so rude." Shen Luofei sneered, "Who are you? Why should I call you?" Xie Jinglei is still as arrogant and domineering as before, but she is no longer the Shen Luofei who allowed herself to be bullied by her. Shen Luofei's ruthless response immediately made Xie Jinglei feel embarrassed. She was furious. "Shen Luofei, I am your elder and your ex-mother-in-law. Don't you understand respecting the old and loving the young?" Shen Luofei smiled. "You said she was my ex-mother-in-law, so we'll just be strangers when we meet again. Respecting the old and loving the young requires that the old person deserves respect, but forget about someone like you. You are going too far." Xie Jinglei was so angry that she approached Shen Luofei and uttered bad words. "Shen Luofei, your outfit looks very expensive. Your family is bankrupt and can't afford it. I guess you are being kept by some rich old man. Since you are being kept by an old man, don't bother me for banquets anymore. The position of the young lady of the Ji family will always belong to Chu Shi. Forget it."